T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
You are now tapped into the coolest reptile podcast in the world. Welcome to the Trap Talk Reptile Podcast, episode 342. I'm your boy, MJ. Historical night tonight, guys. And if you guys been following this podcast, you know what I mean by historical. First Hognose breeder episode ever to come to the Trap Talk Reptile Podcast platform. So I'm stoked. And this ain't just no normal Hognose breeder. He's the best. And I've had the privilege of interviewing him before, and we got him tonight with one of my best friends in the game, Dave Levison. But guys, what is good? I'm your boy, MJ. Hope everyone's doing great out there, man. Happy Thursday. Feels like a Friday. Ready to party, if you know what I mean. It's go time, man. Ready to learn about these hognoses. But if you're into snakes, reptiles, lizards, you name it, man. Animals in general, majority reptiles, right? If you're into reptiles, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. That way you're on top of every single podcast I drop here on the Trap Talk Reptile Podcast. Hit that notification bell, and you will thank yourself, because when it comes to reptiles, keeping, breeding, admiring, this is the podcast to listen to. Most relevant, coolest reptile podcast in the world. And if you're listening to this podcast on the audio platforms, thank you so much. You can catch this podcast on all the major all the major audio platforms: Buzzsprout, Google Play, Apple, Spotify, the major ones, man. If you listen to me on those platforms, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Again, thank you for all the love and support. It really means a lot, man. Been at this, and I feel like I'm just getting going. And yeah, man, much love and respect to everyone out there. We had a little bit of technical difficulties, but I'm just seeing the homies pop in right now. So, that always happens right when it needs to. But before we get into things, guys, I just want to let you know tonight's episode is brought to you by the Reptile Super Show, #1 reptile show in the country, thrown by my boy Rami and the entire Reptile Super Show crew. Cannot wait for Anaheim right around the corner, man. We're talking like just a little more than a month away. You're going to be catching your boy MJ vending his second show. I am so stoked. Energy is going to be there. I am not playing. I got so many epic guests. I'm going to be interviewing straight from my booth. Might even bring some snakes available. Honestly, all I have are super dwarfs. Don't have a lot either, but I might bring some super dwarfs. So if you're looking to get into the super dwarf game, either go to my morph market, Trap Exotics, or hit me up and I will hook you up with a super dwarf. Real deal super dwarf. 50% Calatoa. Pairing was a marble tiger anery to a platinum het anery, and I hit some sick ass marble combos, anery combos, marble anery combos. So just hit me up, man. Let me know if you're interested in the project, and we could talk more about it, man. But if you're looking for exclusive content, I do want to tell you, head down to the very first link you see in the description below. Click on it. Join the Trap Talk Patreon family, because if you join the Patreon family, you get a link to the Discord, and that Discord will tap you in with over 165 passionate reptile keepers, all about the business, all about the fun, all about the love for the reptile, man. And we're constantly learning. That Discord is popping 24/7. And I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much to all my Patreon members. You guys are my heart. You're my motivation. And I cannot wait to tap in with you guys shortly at the Anaheim Super Show. And yeah, man, seriously, I'm very just humbled with all the love and support I've gotten over the years. And you guys are awesome. Just getting started. Head over to Instagram, TrapTalkGod619. Give me a follow if you want to see what I have going on, like what's behind me, what's in front of me, all my reptiles, man. I'm an animal reptile keeper before I'm a podcaster, for sure. Podcasting comes well after me being an animal keeper and lover. That's for damn sure. So really go check me out, TrapTalkGod619. And then go give me a subscribe to my other YouTube channel, because I'm dropping a vlog Friday. Okay, the Trap Vlogs on YouTube. All right? And that's a good way to kind of really tap in and see what I have going on for the year and for my projects and all that other good stuff. Okay. I do want to say, though, tonight's episode is also brought to you by Mark Bailey, one of the number one ball python keepers ever to exist, I feel like. And this is just my opinion. But, man, I've heard nothing but great things from Mark, or about Mark, even before I met him. And now that I'm good friends with him, I just feel very honored, very blessed to have a relationship with a guy who's so important, I feel like, to the reptile industry and the ball python community, man. Ask about it, man. Your favorite ball python breeder's favorite breeder. That's a fact. Mark Bailey. Shout out to Mark Bailey for supporting the Trap Talk Reptile podcast. Appreciate you, dog. Cannot wait to hang out with Mark Bailey, because I heard Mark Bailey's going to be at the Reptile Super Show. You want to know what else I heard? Dave Levis is tapping in from an abandoned bowling alley. What's up, Dave?
Ready to go, man. Making it work as always.
I love the shades. Those shades are very player, I got to say.
Thought you'd like that. They also cost me $3.
I mean, I'm sure you did this already, but did you make sure there's no needles or anything like that you could stick you by the floor where you're at? I just want to make sure you're okay.
That sounds like your lifestyle, buddy, not mine.
Okay, sounds good, man. Hey, very excited for tonight's episode. Just let the people know who Junior is to you, man. I mean, how far back do you and Junior go? Just to let the viewers know for tonight.
Well, I'm shitty with anniversaries, but longer than most. At least a decade at this point, probably longer. And honestly, man, just a good person, very smart. A lot of the shit that spews out of my mouth is stuff that have come out of his brain from our long conversations. So we're going to learn a lot today, and we're going to be confused as shit by the time this conversation's over.
And listen, I do not kid around, Dave, on how many people are a fan of you being a part of this podcast. They always love it when you show your face, but I want people to understand, man, as much as they love you, this is Dave's good friend. So you're going to love this guy just as much as Dave, because I do. And you're right, man. This guy is a wealth of knowledge. We're going to be tapping into hognoses, man. I've never talked about hognoses on this show. I just don't do it. But this is the guy best in the game. How many world's first, to your knowledge, has this guy had in the hognose game so far?
It's going to sound silly, but maybe up to 28 now, and there's like 10 genes in hognose.
Well, I think he can speak for himself, because he's waiting. He's around. Junior, episode 342 coming at you right now. Dave, let's rock and roll this, buddy.
Ready, bud.
You ready for do more in the future? Trap Talk podcasts?
Yes.
Man.
Only Trap Talk. Exclusive.
Yes.
Exclusive. Oh.
So stop calling us.
Rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the crop, gotta love it or not. I'm hot from the hop to the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with everybody, we do it. Everybody, we do it. Do it. Do it.
And we're live. Junior, you there, buddy? Gangster,
Hello, can you hear me?
Gangster stuff. No sound check. Straight to the live.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, no sound check at all. This is the first sound check right now.
Let's fucking do it, man. Here he is. What's up, buddy? How are you? How you living?
Doing good. Yeah, doing good. Yeah, I tried to get. I was here on time too, but then I messed around for like 15 friggin' minutes.
Sounds right.
Yeah, I mean, can you? I mean, what else do you expect when Dave's a part of this? It ain't just gonna be a smooth sailing ride. I mean, we're gonna go through a little bit of turbulence. You know that.
Yeah, Dave was on time though. It appears he looks like he's all relaxed and set up and ready. Really? Okay, you ran out there.
Yeah, I just got here about 10 minutes before we started.
Okay, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
I
it's not bad.
better start off than last episode we had together. Jesus Christ, he didn't even know what to say. As soon as we went live, it was like, Dave, you there?
Well, we've already talked about that. We don't have to remind everybody about my mistakes.
Oh my gosh, man. Junior, I want to say thank you for being part of something historical for this podcast. I've never had a highlight hognose breeder on this show, man. And you got many other, experiences with different types of reptiles under your belt, but hognose seems to be your bread and butter and your foundation, correct?
I love hognose. They're my favorite species. So that's why it's like all hognose all the time for me. I still do like some leopard geckos, and I work with African fat-tailed geckos too. And I have a few milk snakes. I have a trio of Sumatran short-tailed pythons, the black bloods. But hognose are my primary focus because I really, really love them. So yeah, that's I've had them for a long time. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, go ahead and let people know who your dad is, because your dad's somebody who's well known in the industry for many, many years. So if you don't mind, just give a brief background as far as like what even put you in the position that you are in today, and why that is.
Sure. Yeah, my dad was into keeping reptiles and amphibians. He actually primarily had a lot of amphibians. He had Argentine horned frogs, he had fire-bellied toads, tomato frogs. He had redfoot tortoises, and he had some leopard geckos too, and he had fat-tailed geckos at one point. So when I was a little kid, I was definitely involved and like exposed to reptiles and being around them, as well as other wildlife, because he'd take me out hiking, especially fishing. And so I was very interested in reptiles and amphibians, right from a young age. And he was going to reptile shows, and he's more of a hobbyist, but he was I think the second person to actually successfully get the Argentine horned frogs to reproduce. And he raised up the froglets and all that. And by the time I was 9, he was actually completely getting out of everything. He had his redfoot tortoise collection, and he sold it off. But
Wow.
He had friends he made it the reptile industry and stuff too, back in the really probably late 80s and early 90s. And I was always really interested in snakes. I think it's because I was exposed to reptiles and amphibians so much. And then when I seen a snake for the first time, it was just so unique and foreign to me. I was like, wow, this is really, really cool. And I just really gravitated towards snakes and reading Audubon's Reptiles magazines. And so then I started begging him to take me to reptile shows and stuff. And that happened. I mean, actually, before all that happened, I did get my first pet snake, which was an eastern milk snake, when I was right around the age of 8. Maybe I think I was still 7 at the time, but
I mean, I feel like kids are smart, especially when they have I don't know. I think working with animals so closely kind of makes you a little bit more advanced than the average human, because you're really paying attention to certain things. And I'm curious, when your dad decided to kind of throw in the towel when you were 9, were you oh, hell no? Did you already know at that age that you wanted to continue this no matter what your dad wanted to do?
Well, my dad has a lot of interest. If people know him, he has a lot of interest. He does all kinds of stuff. But the thing is, that interest wasn't completely gone. We would still go, we would fish all the time. We'd go herping here and there. But primarily the thing we'd do together, spend time, was fishing. And by the time I was 10, I actually had I had 2 hognose, I had a corn snake. I still had the milk snake and all that. And I had a pine snake too. And then when I started getting more interested in, actually it wasn't until I got leopard geckos. I wanted to start breeding leopard geckos because of the genetics and everything. And he was taking me to all these reptile shows. And then he was like, yeah, I want to get back into it. So then he got right back into it. And then he actually got into corn snakes. And so he had his own side project with corn snakes, and he did chameleons and some rhacodactylus. And we bred leopard and fat-tailed geckos together for a good 14 years. And we did a lot during that time. My dad's a very good motivator. My dad's also very smart. He's really hands-on. He likes to just get stuff done. And if you're not doing something, he'll tell you to do it. So if I'm ever being late, he'll kick me in the ass. And that's actually good to have, because, you just can't have somebody just be passively enabling you, your whole entire life. But I also like what you said about exposing, say at a younger age, getting involved in something that you have an interest in. It's kind of like languages. When you're a really young age, you can learn multiple languages very easily. Your brain's very malleable. And so, being involved with any interest from a very young age, I think, is definitely key and important in forming a passion. Not saying that you have to be a young age, but it definitely has its, perks, or definitely its
advantages.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, Dave would be the first episode I had with Forrest where like he was saying names where obviously like he had a story behind every name he would say, but I didn't know these names. So I would just kind of like mentally take notes of these names. And do you remember when you first talked about Jeff, remember you're like, you should bring Jeff Sr. or Jr. on the show. And then you went ahead and told about exactly what it was that they did. And I don't know, man, I always feel like anytime Dave says anyone's name, it's something inspiring to him, which would be aspiring to everything that we're trying to do here. But I think it's kind of crazy how full circle things have gone. And now I'm sitting here with you and Dave on the Trap Talk podcast. And I think it's pretty epic. Dave, how do you feel?
I feel good, man. I love talking to Junior. You know, we jokingly had this podcast together about 10 nights ago, and we talked for about 7 hours, I feel, in preparation of even doing this. Hopefully we forgot most of what we said, so it seems fresh in a minute. But, yeah, man, no, you know, me and Junior spent a little time living together for about 6 to 8 months once, and I'll be honest,
Wow.
We woke up in the morning, 10 months. We woke up in the morning, and we didn't shut the fuck up for 15 hours, and we went back to bed. And it was like that every day of the week. So always learning something new. A lot of respect for what they had going on over there.
I got to know why were you living with Junior? What was going on behind that?
But Junior needed some help with a few things, and I just got out of a divorce, so I just figured I would live in a little kid's bedroom with a mattress against the wall because it seemed like the right move in life.
Man, talk about pondering and finding yourself. I think that's a good way right there, man. I mean, what a chapter in your life.
We proposed the idea, man. We both needed each other, so we jumped in.
Yeah.
No homo, bud. No homo.
It was an interesting time. Dave basically, he seen the room and he goes, yeah, I can make this work. And it was wall-to-wall racks. And so basically it was like a little pop-up, like, you know, like apartment where his bed would be leaned in between racks during the day. And when he went to sleep, he'd lay it down. And that room was hot as fuck because when he moved in, it was springtime. And then Dave's like, oh, yeah, it's really good times. Really memorable. There was like definitely times I remember where Dave was like, man, this sucks. Because like one time we're moving the rack system into the bedroom, and my mom, she was living in the house too. And so I was still living at my parents' house at this time too. So this was really, and I was using it at the time. I was talking in a British accent to irritate and haze Dave. And then it woke up my mom. I was like, you think this is funny, Dave? Waking up my fucking mom in the fucking, yeah, you think this is funny? And I was just saying it for hours. And Dave would just be like, oh, buddy, man. He goes, you're really wearing me down. And even though it was like a joke and everything, they would definitely, after a while, be like, man, this is enough. And so he would definitely have a break for me, though, because he'd go to reptile shows a lot. But then, yeah, then he'd come back. We would hang out, work on reptiles and stuff, and, you know, go fishing and shit, all that.
Yep. Living the dream, buddy. Living the dream.
Now, back to living the dream, you know, when did things really start taking off for you? At what age, Junior, with the reptiles? Like as far as it being a business and you being able to make money, putting back into that sort of thing?
Well, it's very bumpy. There's a lot of good. You know, the thing was, it's like, you know, this market and this hobby and this industry is like always, like it's always changing all the time. It evolves a lot. And there's a lot of, you know, necessary needs to adapt into, like, you know, say new things like morph market. That's the one thing Dave and I talked a lot about, was the morph market deal. But, you know, really when I was like 15, 16, I was already, because like I was better at just doing emails and working on the computer than my dad. So I was actually already kind of spearheading sales when we bred leopard and African fat-tailed geckos together.
Wow.
So, and at that time too, it was actually kind of funny because I would do the majority of emails, but we'd kind of keep it just quiet that I did most of the emails because we didn't want people really knowing that they were talking to a 15 and 16-year-old that much at the time, as all the stuff was, you know, going on.
Yeah.
You know, sales or whatnot. But I was already like doing sales for the ham show when I was like 15, going to reptile shows with my dad. You know, I was definitely very motivated and energetic about it. And yeah, so was he. And so, you know, there's definitely ups and downs. But I'd say, like, you know, there was a lot of lessons and definitely a lot of loss, financial loss. Because, you know, like I think I talked to you about that briefly. I was like, you could like invest like say like $160,000, lose that $160,000, then you have like $10,000. That $10,000 might turn into like $500,000 over time. So The thing is, you're never going to allocate money perfectly. There's always going to be some loss or whatever. So, but you don't want to pay attention to like that all the time. You know, like or you know, or not. But you don't want to just be passive about it. But I'd say by my early 20s, things really started to take off, especially the geckos. I had some health, hiccups while I was in my mid-20s and stuff. And so I was doing good, but I wasn't doing better. I was just kind of staying stagnant. And then when I got into my late 20s and everything, and I was focusing more on my hognose at that point, because by the time I was like 26, I was moving more away from geckos. And then as the hognose, really were getting more of my full attention, and that's the species I really wanted to go towards. And even though the market wasn't as strong then, I didn't really care, and I wasn't as known for them at that point, which was roughly like 10 years ago. But they were my favorite species. I had them for actually longer than I had geckos, and at that point, that's when things really started accelerating in my late 20s, which was like 7-8 years ago.
Let's go back to. Oh, I'm sorry, David. I wanted before we missed this topic about shows real quick, because me and Dave had the privilege of having the new CEO and owner of MORPH Market, right? And if it's one thing, the last thing I said was like, dude, stop bitching at this guy about not having sales and your sales being down. Because like what I want to relate that to is like, there's people who bitch about not even want to sell snakes at shows anymore. You've been in this game, and so have you, Dave, long enough. You guys both have waves that come and go, right? And waves you ride out as long as you can until you need to go catch the next one. But these waves could put you in a position where, where, like you said, don't be passive about it, but you could put yourself in a smarter position when you don't have as many waves coming, but those waves that did come put you in a good spot. You know what I mean? That's what happened to me. Like I said, I'm still selling stuff, but it's just not 2020 sales. That's for damn sure. But every now and then I'm getting what I can get. And I feel like people just need to understand that the waves come and go. Am I right?
Yeah, definitely. There's always market trends. There's always ups and downs. I mean, crested geckos, they were like, no disrespect for crested geckos. They're an awesome species. It has nothing to do with that. But the market was like in the mud like 5-6 years ago. And then really the, morphs like lily white and axanthic catching on. And then, all that is really definitely sparked a massive interest. And, crested geckos are definitely a species deserving of it. But the one thing that they were missing for a while was, a new project. So if there was no new projects, there's some kind of like, definitely die off as far as investing, and then all that interest goes, because if you already have all the morphs, there's really no necessary reason to reinvest or buy other stuff. And not that these things are just solely investments, but these projects definitely keep a lot of excitement and interest going. I love genetics, and that's a big integral part of this, as far as working with, say, like Western hognose snakes. Like I would have a lot of Western hognose snakes even if there weren't many morphs and you couldn't make much money off them. But I wouldn't be doing as many because I really like just doing these projects. So every time I have a project idea, I'm like, all right, I'm going to keep this, and this is the necessary amount, whatever that I need for this project. And then I'll just kind of go from there. And if it makes it to the point where, I need to have like a massive collection, then I'll do that. And that's actually kind of what happened.
Now, he said genetics, Dave. Genetics was something you told me last week. Like, listen, motherfucker, if you want to learn some shit, we're going to talk about genetics. And I can't wait, because I do want to bring up why there's no morphs in a green tree python. And I tried explaining how green tree pythons are strictly localities. But then, like, obviously we talk about designers and these super blues and all these things that are coming out, but like there are no morphs. So I want to know really what makes a genetic and what makes a locality. And I can't wait to talk about that. Sorry, Dave, go ahead. I've been on.
We're going to get to genetics. I promise. I'm enjoying this background now because I'm realizing there's some stuff that I even am a little curious about that I should know about you. So, no, I'm serious. So when you and your dad started heavily breeding leopard geckos, who did you go to learn about your genetic stuff, or did you guys literally have to learn it yourself?
Kind of had to learn it ourselves. Actually, I'll tell you what, one of the biggest starting points for me to learn genetics came from Reptiles magazine. And I think it was like a 2001 article, and they had a list of genetic terms, and I can't remember if they had the definitions, but they had a list of them. And I do know wherever I got the definitions, whether it was I looked them up or I got them from Reptiles magazine, I think I got them from Reptiles magazine. And I made a large list of, pretty much every genetic term that I was hearing, wrote down a clear definition, and I'd read that every night before going to bed, because, if you think about something or you read about something like right before you go to sleep, that's one of the better ways to maintain that information. And so I did that with like these 2 sheets of paper. And after about a month, I kind of knew them verbatim. And once you know the definitions, it's a little easier to connect the dots. And that was like kind of the starting point. I definitely at one point knew more, and then I knew less. And now as I'm restudying again and stuff, I'm now learning more interesting things. And it's like, it's one of these like endeavors that's never ending. You know, even if you read about genetics and you think you've learned everything, and there's a lot more. And then also you have to keep rebrushing up on it because it is quite complex. You know, it's kind of like going to high school, and let's say you even have like a perfect GPA, 3-4 years out of high school, you're not going to probably remember a good portion of what you had learned. So you always got to be revisiting these things, and then working with them, you know, these like snakes and looking at genetics, that kind of, definitely helps. But that was the starting point. And then my dad, he would kind of do a somewhat similar thing, after I did that. And, he'd read up too, but then he's pretty good at genetics. He's actually pretty good for somebody that I don't think he's definitely not read about as much as I have, but he's still very good.
Well, I mean, I even said, like, in school, I wish I paid more attention in science and biology class because that'd really come in handy right now.
Same here.
Everything I know now is simply self-taught conversations, like you said, reading articles here and there, books. But, I'll be honest, man, you know me, I'm not well-read. I'm a talker. I would rather you tell me about the book than read it myself a lot of the time. It's not my best quality. You put that thing on tape, I'd consider it, but who's got time to sit down and read a book anymore?
Yeah.
Hey, Dave, true or false? And Jeff, I don't know how well you know Forrest or knew Forrest, but Forrest at every episode, Forrest had a bookshelf behind him, bunch of books, right? And Forrest had some long answers sometimes, and Steven would just be like, dude, that he Google researched that before, and so do you think Forrest was just a really heavy Google researcher versus an actual person who read the books? What's the truth behind that?
I think here's the thing. I didn't know Forrest that well. I knew Forrest, we were definitely like a little more than acquaintances. I remember the one time we talked in Daytona for a couple hours because we had all this stuff in common, same interests.
Yeah.
Same kind of like a similar like background. We both dropped out of high school. He was into actually day trading and Forex trading, exchanging, trading currencies. And so we talked about that. Talk about reptiles. I think he knew definitely a good amount, but actually, I don't think there's any shame in Googling anything and rebrushing stuff, because I was actually just mentioning it to Dave. You could be really well read and you could read, let's say, a book, let's say on genetics. And if you are not always tapping into that stuff, or like 3-4 years later, you're going to forget a lot of it. So you kind of have to revisit stuff to kind of reinvigorate, some, stuff you've learned or just some of that knowledge. But I mean, maybe is a little bit of both. We'll never know. I mean,
regardless, he knew his fucking scientific names. That's for damn sure. And
he did.
That's all would stand out to me. I was like, how the fuck does he know that? And I'm not a big reader. Trust me, I try, but I like pictures, right? And so, and also too, like sometimes it's better to hear someone say the name and then you remember it that way versus reading it in a book. Because I mean, a lot of these, names for these damn species, you see it in a book and you don't even know how to pronounce it anyways. I don't know.
The Latin's definitely funny to pronounce.
I love it.
That's one thing that when you said that, that's when I instantly remembered about Forrest was the impressive knowledge of just scientific names of individual species. It was definitely very vast and large. And he knew a lot about the individual species. So he is pretty well read, but yeah, I'm sure sometimes he had to like Google stuff every now and then and rebrush up. I do it.
Yeah. What do you Google, Dave?
I usually just bullshit my way through it, man. If you look like you're confident, it's right.
Just act as if. Okay. Now, just before we kind of get off the focus of the foundation, which is the hognoses, listen, we're in a time right now with no matter what the cells are like, people are still interested in more reptiles more than ever nowadays. How big have hognoses really picking up over the last couple of years?
A lot. Definitely a lot. It's pretty impressive. It's impressed me. Actually, for the longest time, I was like, why aren't these more popular? They should be like one of the, if not the most popular snake, very, very close, just because of their unique look. Everybody likes to look at a Western hognose snake. I mean, there is a small percent that really don't, but they're very They're very cool looking. They look like they're venomous, even though they're mildly venomous, but not dangerous. You know, a lot of like girls like them a lot. I know a lot of girls think they're extremely cute. I showed them to so many people that don't even like snakes, and they're like, oh, that's actually not bad. They're like, I like that snake's face. That's actually kind of interesting and cute looking. But yeah, hognose have definitely blown up a lot. And one thing that's helped is the morph mutations, and just really social media has been the biggest driver. You know, especially I'd say it started like really 3-4 years ago. It's kind of been gradual, but you know, like TikTok, Instagram, all of those have actually been really large reasons for hognose to, you know, get more people interested in not only hognose snakes, but actually interested in snakes and probably a little over their fear of them, because, you know, every now and then you'll see a video of a hognose like, you know, trending on TikTok going viral that might have like, you know, 3 million likes or 1 million likes, probably some of the top ones, and they have like tens of millions of views, some of the crazy ones. This one guy I know, Jeff Critters, friend of mine, he actually had Britney Spears reshare one of his hognose videos.
Was it her or was it her caretaker? Who was it? Actually Britney Spears, or was this back in the day when she had that caretaker, her dad?
This was like in the past year, so it could have been. There's somebody that had control over her account. I mean, I think they'd have to at least tell her, like, can I reshare this snake? You know, and they're like, yeah, sure, go ahead. Maybe she's having another episode of like Panic and everything, and she's like real into snakes at the moment for some reason.
I remember her Burmese that she had during one of her music videos. I mean, I was a huge Britney Spears fan at one point when I was, I think high school it was or something. I don't know. She was it, man. That's for sure. And then, you know, just like every other human, things just fall off. But I heard she's doing all right now. I've seen her moves, and she's strapped to hognoses. I will say, man, your meme skills with hognoses is very welcoming. I gotta be one of those people. Want to be honest? I'll be honest with you, Jeff. Want to know why I haven't had a hognose breeder on here?
Go ahead.
I just don't care. And that's because I just haven't seen anything that's really been like, holy shit, okay, that interests me. And honestly, hearing how much you've done, like invested with the hognoses, really makes me stand up. But honestly, since I followed you, I can't help but to be a fan of hognoses because of all the memes, and it's the funniest thing ever. I've seen snakes with arms drawn on them, but nothing competes with a hognose with arms, bro. Like it's the fucking most funniest things. And you know, I don't always have the best mornings, but when you have your memes that I look at on your stories and what you post, they make me laugh. And I couldn't help but to become a hognose lover ever since following you. But like you said, I'm like, I have so many things that I'm geeking out over. Hognose has just never been it for me. You know what I mean? But not that I'm not interested now, you know, trust me, now it's different, you know? But I'm curious with, you know, with everything else, because, you know, could you just say yet how many species of reptiles you actually work and breed with altogether right now, other than hognoses?
I have the leopard geckos, African fat-tailed geckos. I have a few Honduran milks. I have a trio of Sumatran short-tails that are about ready to breed.
Oh, I saw those, the black ones?
Yeah, the black bloods. And then I have, you know, I have some baby beaded lizards, but, you know, they're a long way out. So, right. Yeah, it's really just like, I like Western hognose so much. That's the reason. Like, I have a interest in a lot of other species, but like, I know if I get into too much stuff, I'm like, well, this is going to take time away from my Western hognose. Like, I'm pretty simple and probably friggin' boring, because if I was like if I want to go herping, actually my favorite species that I'd actually want to go herping for would be Western hognose. If we went herping for Western hognose for a week straight, and like, what do you want to herp for next? Top species. It'd have to be Western hognose again. So
that just shows how much you love it, though. I mean, like, it's just like, fuck that. If I could go look for these, that's all I would want to go look for. I would be the same way. Yeah,
and you have green trees and emerald tree boas too, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, both. Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, that's the thing, because you're into pretty unique and, like, you know, definitely interesting species. Like, I see you have the lace monitors, you have beadeds, you have green trees, you have emerald tree boas. You have very pretty, interesting, unique animals that aren't really they're a little more on a, you know, definitely higher level. It's not definitely amateur species to keep, that's for sure.
Yeah, so, I mean, but breeding wise, all I have is the ball pythons. I'm not, and that's a fact. All I have really that has even brought me all this was ball python stuff. And you know, as much as I kind of act like I'm bored of that, I'm not. Like, I'm very thankful for ball pythons. But then again, like, there's not much I need to put in mind wise into getting a ball python to breed, other than the time of year and how much to feed. But then again, like, you know, and mind you, I don't take any notes on a ball python unless I see an ovulation. Then I write on the tub the ovulation, but I don't mark locks. I don't do any of that. But here, like, I could give you fucking notations on everything. I don't know why I put so much more effort into notating locks and stuff on this side of the room, but on that side of the room, it's like whatever goes. I don't even like, but I don't know, man. That's why I'm really thankful for the ball pythons, and I feel like the hognoses is kind of like that for you. Like, I mean, you're able to kind of dabble into other stuff because how well you got hognoses down, you think?
Yeah, a lot of it's time constraints, though, So even though I got hognose down, it's like, I definitely like the beaded lizards were kind of something I was like, man, those just look really cool. And I was like, the shame is, these things can mess you up if they bite you. I was like, these things, if they weren't venomous, I was like, these would be like the most popular species of lizard, probably. I was like, everybody would want one.
I don't want to get bit by one, bro. And listen, like I see I see people out there doing scratching their heads and like, oh, I'm like, that's cute, but I'm good. I'm like, I hold it because I was taught how to hold it and like, what to do. And mind you, once they come out of the tub, Dave, you safe over there? You have anyone rolling up on you?
Well, I keep an eye out for animals when I'm in here. We get stray dogs sometimes.
Okay, Dave, I know you risk a lot sometimes. I just want to make sure you're good.
You'll know.
But yeah, listen, fuck, what were we talking about? God damn it.
I was talking about your love for ball pythons.
Ball pythons, right. But okay, as much as sales have been rumored that, around the ball python community haven't been that great and, yada, yada, yada. Overall, have you felt any bit of a drought with your hognose sales, or are they just coming and going? What's that really like right now with you?
Surprisingly, my sales are actually better this year than last year. I keep pretty detailed metrics on my past year, but the one thing is I am always competing with the previous year. So every year I'm competing, and like last 3 years, I'm like, I'm not going to be able to beat this month. It's impossible. I can't beat this 6 months. It's impossible. But so far I have, I think 7 years consecutively now. And so no, this year's sales are actually better, believe it or not. But the one thing the one thing you mentioned is about the beaded lizards. That's before Dave was looking around.
Oh yeah,
right, the beaded.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. I was like, I was like, how do people keep getting bit by these things? So I was like, I hear all these stories of people getting bit. I'm like, man, they're very easy not to get bit by. And then I see, like you said, the head scratching videos and all this, and they're a pretty territorial species, and they're pretty they don't even really like to be around each other as far as like they're not communal or anything like that. So.
Well, you have people who love to be in the reptile game, but they do not want to get bit. You want to know somebody? I can't tell you if he's even been bit, and I don't want to kind of like jinx him, I guess. But Marshall Mendez, Marshall Mendez, Red Mountain Herbs, been in the game for years.
I've heard.
He does everything in his power not to get bit, and like some people are just, they know how to move around to where they just don't get bit, and that's you always got to be on your toes. Especially when you have so many animals. I mean, even a ball python is going to get you every now and then, right? But also, Marshall has emeralds. He has chondros. He has shit you just don't want to get bit by, right? And those beadeds, I mean, I look at mine and I'm like, I'm not getting bit by you. I am not going to get bit by you, because it goes how many different directions, Dave? I mean, it can either be like, oh, you're good, or it could be like you're going to be miserable for about a few days. Is that right?
I mean, I work a lot of real soft species nowadays, so I wouldn't say anything's lasting on my end, but I still panic like a child when I get bit by a small snake. I'm sure if anybody's ever been at a reptile show I've been at, and it's sort of loud scream through the building, it's probably me getting tagged by a 100-gram ball python.
Now, back on the topic of hognoses, I mean, I want to talk about some of the stuff that really kind of makes you like, fuck, like so stoked to be working with them, right? I mean, because you do got a lot of different stuff here, man. But I mean, like Arctic sunburst, holy shit! Like what are some of the things that you feel like are the pinnacle projects for what your goals are with the hognoses that we can kind of discuss right now?
Right now, some of the most sought after and like higher end stuff right now, which are current projects that are being produced, are like super Arctic sable combinations.
Oh wow!
So
is this one?
That's actually that's a super anaconda sable Arctic. So that does have one Arctic allele, and it's visual sable, which sable's recessive, and sable increases that melanin, and it also increases not only the melanophores but the other pigment cells also. And all reptiles, like they also have a degree of iridophores, and so it actually disrupts the iridophores, and you get like different like light refractions because Reptiles only have, melanophores, xanthophores, and earthophores. That's it. Well, iridophores too, but iridophores are like crystal like proteins that basically refract back light, and they actually control the intensities and qualities and hues that you see, and they basically give them a large spectrum to be able to blend into their environments and to evolve with their environment through natural selection and probably just evolution for millions of years. Wow. And those iridophores are a key component for reptiles to be able to reach any spectrum because they can refract back any light spectrum. I mean, that's just talking in general as far as like possibilities. Obviously, not all reptiles do this. A ball python, while it does have iridophores, like if you ever look at a ball python and you get those nice iridescent sheens off it,
right.
Those are iridophores doing that. So they all have iridophores to a degree, and but chameleons are a good example. Chameleons can actually expand and contract their iridophores and change them. That's how they can change from red and make blues, because they can't actually make blue pigment, but they're refracting back blue light waves. So you interpret what you see as blue. And so a lot of the evolutionary process with reptiles, pigment development is probably an evolutionary thing for how predators interpret their pigments. So like skinks and stuff having the bright blue tails, that's really helpful for, predators to more visualize and look at the tail and not focus on the main point of the body, so the lizard has time to escape. But that's just how they evolved with those pigment cells to probably better themselves. And so all these morphs and stuff, especially like this is a cool snake you're showing right now.
Yeah, this is nuts.
Essentially, that's a normal hognose with just one incomplete allele of the anaconda gene. And a regular anaconda hognose is more like kind of like it disrupts the pattern, it could reduce the pattern, and make it. But usually they're more going to be a tannish color. These colors that you see on these nice yellows and these burgundy, orangish, and red tones, that's all done through selective breeding / line breeding, or if you want to call it a polygenic trait or a combination of polygenic traits, because we got 2 lineages here. Well, actually 3, but I'm not. Basically, there's purple line and extreme red, which are the 2, but they're basically just different lines of red phase. And the other line is lemon ghost, which is yellow phase. So to simplify,
I'm sorry, Junior. How many years does it take to get to this snake? Like, if you want to start from like the root of like the F1, how long does it take to get to this snake?
Well, I already have lemon ghost for a long time. So the lemon ghost, line, the yellow phase, and then also involving or breeding it into the extreme red lineage was pretty, pretty quick, kind of, once I already had all the components. But, I line bred lemon ghost. That was actually one of my first hognose projects. And it started with a wild caught yellow phase when I had. It was a high yellow belly, and I bred it, and I got some greenish ones. And then one year I bred him, I actually got a really yellow offspring, and I kept it back. And it wasn't until like probably 4 or 5 years after that I put the project name on it as Lemon Ghost. And you could even say that it definitely was. It was stolen from the ball python hobby because I was really obsessed with ghost ball pythons when I was in my mid-teens. And I really like just ghost ball pythons in general. Like, and then, they'd call like ones like the, different phase ghosts, like green ghosts and orange ghosts. And just like a really high quality, nice looking ghost ball python was like one of my favorite looking ball pythons because I thought it was really beautiful, subtle, but not subtle at the same time. And it had a large array of this really cool, just faded pattern and color that just looked very pretty and unique to me. So I took that name and applied it to the hognose kind of, but put Lemon Ghost.
And we're going to be seeing even better versions of this in the future is what you're saying.
Yeah, that's a cool thing about polygenics, that you can, if you do the selective line breeding right, which a lot of people will, once you get kind of have a handle on it, it's kind of hard to fuck things up. But I have seen people mess stuff up, in my opinion, in leopard geckos, pretty surprisingly. I mean, man, it's kind of a hard one to mess up, but somebody found a way to do it. But if you keep selectively line breeding those, long past I'm dead, there'll probably be really crazy ones, because like the reptile hobby, when it comes to selectively line breeding for polygenics, is actually it's young. Like, people haven't really been doing it for more than it's been going on for a little more than 30 years in some species, but overall it became really more popular in the early 2000s. So I'd say a lot of this stuff, especially with hognose, is like barely over 20 years old. There were some red face hognose in the late 90s, and that's when people were line breeding them then. So, I'd say like maybe it might be getting closer to 30 years in the next 3-4 years. I mean, time definitely speeds along.
What makes a hognose this color?
That's albino, and that has purple line and extreme red. And again, purple line is just, I didn't come up with the name. It's just a different line of red phase. So, but I like to use different lineages red phase and incorporate them together, so I can keep selectively line breeding, but also diversify the genetics and outcross while not overly inbreeding.
Wow. Dave, you with us?
Yeah, no, I'm here, man. I'm just enjoying the conversation. I'm not quiet for any other reason, but so you talked about how one of your early projects was focusing on that yellow pigment. Isn't that how you accidentally stumbled across your first Arctic because of characteristics in that you thought would contribute to that project?
Sort of. I definitely think because it was a long time ago. I'm pretty sure. Well, I know which one was the original Arctic, and it got bred into my lemon ghost, and it was a really nice, light-colored, unique animal. And actually, somebody else almost bought it, but I really, really liked it. I thought it was really pretty, and I bought it. And the guy then told me after I bought it, because it was like cheap ass price, man. It was $60. I asked him if he could do 50. And I was like 13 at the time, and he goes, "Yeah." And then I was like, all right, I looked around and I was like, I got out to 50. And maybe I misheard him. He says it's 55. And then I gave him an extra 5. And so then I bought it. And that female, I bred into my original lemon ghost male. And I got some really nice highlighted yellow offspring. And it wasn't until a few years from then I bred one and produced one, which was the first Arctic, which was just really pretty. And I thought it was just a variation of a selectively line bred trait at that point. Because, I wasn't too sure I would have a mutant allele or I'd be that lucky to have one in my collection. But I ended up raising him up, and then I actually bred him back to his mom, and that's when I produced the first Super Arctic. Because I was like, you know what? I should breed him back just to see if there's something hidden there. I was like, this guy is very unique, and he's very pretty. I'd like to reproduce this. And at that time, I bred him to another female, and I produced a half Arctic clutch. And I sold off all the normals, and I kept every one that was an Arctic, and I had them labeled Arctic then. And so I wasn't thinking it was an incomplete dominant trait or even dominant at that time, but I kind of had the suspicion it might be. But I just had so many other people that had been in the hobby longer than me basically saying that wasn't possible. So it definitely had me doubt myself. But, you got to be careful of, speaking in absolutes.
So I'm sorry. I just a couple more quick things on the Arctic. Okay, now here's for fun. So how long did you have that project before you ever proved out a super?
Oh man, long time. I ran into some issues. And then one of the original Arctic, the original Arctic mom got egg bound. That time she was the second or third female I had ever bred. I think the third female. Yeah. And, I got 7 babies from her, and she actually had 10 other eggs stuck in her. And, I had my dad help me, extirpate the eggs from her, and she actually had an egg still stuck in her that we didn't know about. And then the next following year, she died because of that. I think that was a complication. She actually ended up passing it, but there's a lot of looked like white greenish cottage cheese on it, which was definitely showing there's probably a sign of infection. There's probably a lot of dead white blood cells that were attacking and trying to get rid of this dead foreign object in her, the fertilized embryo that she couldn't pass, and that egg. And yeah, she ended up dying. And I was pretty young at that time, so there's definitely I made the mistake there of not knowing what to do in that situation. But yeah, it wasn't something she was going downhill for a long time either. Hognose can be pretty, they're pretty tough snakes. So sometimes they can have, issues and you might not even know about it. And she was one of those.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because ball pythons are pretty tough too. I got to be careful how I say this because I want to say the first 3 years never had any issues. And then, I hear I've had breeders come on and say, yeah, I lose about 3 this many males of the year, depending that they probably have big collections, but still I'm who the fuck loses a ball python every year? Mind you, it could happen, especially after a while. You know what I mean? But there's also things that you pay attention to. Obviously if the male's not eating good or the female's not eating good, you don't want to pair. So I'm curious as far as what approaches you take going into your breeding season with your hognoses, especially females that laid clutches for you the year before. For the most part, are those girls going for you every year? Do you give them breaks, that sort of stuff?
Yeah, they go every year pretty much, just as long as they're doing well and they're healthy. And I've learned a lot over the years from a lot of mistakes being sold even sick animals at times when I was younger. That I learned how to get keep my snakes pretty healthy. I don't lose very many at all. Usually if I lose a male, if you have healthy hognose, I have the highest probability of losing a male to a female eating him. But that's not super common, but it's definitely common enough. Like if you keep and breed hognose, especially a decent amount of them, and you do it every year and you keep them for a while, it's pretty much inevitable a female is at least going to attempt to eat a male at some point. So, my female hognose, I get them to produce pretty much every year. It's rare that they get a year off. If they do get a year off, it's because they had some form of a complication or egg binding the year prior, and they still just haven't completely recovered from it.
Nice.
I've had females get egg binding. I breed them next year. I wondered what you're going to do, Dave, because I was like standing in the black. And then I get up. I was like, oh, he'll be able to actually, maybe he likes this because he'll be able to move without really alerting us what's going on.
He could be fondling himself. He could do whatever he wants.
I'm in a parking lot, bud. No rules.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
But yeah, the males, the thing is, like, I supplement them. I feed them. If anybody gets a little on the thin side, I just, keep them separate. But, as long as your hognose are parasite and bacteria free, you really shouldn't have any problems. But, that's the one thing. I mean, quarantine is difficult. Quarantining strictly for long terms can be very, very tedious. And a lot of people don't want to go into that. And then, so sometimes I know, like with ball python people, I mean, it's like, if they have like a healthy male that just dropped dead, there could be another complication going on, as far as like a potential disease if they're not careful quarantining.
Yeah, one thing about ball python breeders, especially the ones that are like shooting for the moon, they have males that they put to a lot of females. Do you have that as well? Like, do you have powerful males that you try to like, stretch too thin, but you try to get them to as many girls as possible?
Oh yeah, I definitely found over the years of doing this techniques to actually do that safely. I give my males long breaks though, so that's what I end up doing is just giving these guys long breaks and just making sure they're plumped up and fed.
What's a long break?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, good.
My man.
About 7 days is like it's like 6-7 days is like the minimum. Usually I'm doing more like 8, 9, 10 days. Getting some good meals in them, supplementing their food. Sometimes I even give them electrolyte water. And I've actually had males pull double shifts where I've bred them like up to as many as like 7 females. I'm sure you could possibly breed them to more, but there's really no reason for me to do that in a lot of cases. So I've never actually bred a male to probably more than 6 females. I said 7, but I'll have to think. I don't even know if I've ever bred a male to quite 7 females. I think, last year I did, but I did a double brumation, which was like an interesting thing I did because I bred a bunch of males to one wave of females. Those females are all done, and I do a process of elimination. So I'm like, let's use these as an example, even though these are babies. Like, all right, these are all done. And then I bring out this set of females that were brumated later. And now they're out of brumation. Let's say I brought them out of brumation like 2 months later. The males, after I got done breeding these, I fed them up, took them off food, brumated them for a few weeks just to kind of give them a metabolism slowdown and for their bodies just kind of like have that natural rest state. Where their metabolism is just a little slowed down. Then I rewarmed them back up, fed them up again, gave them electrolytes, got them all good and going again, and I was able to bring them to a second wave. Although I did notice that there were some males, and they're doing great now. They just petered out. These were like awesome breeder males, and they just had, it was probably right around when a lot of them got around to 6-7 females or like closer to that point. Like a few of my males, I tried to breed to multiple females like that, like my moonbeam guys, which are super Arctic lavender condas. And they got to roughly around 6 females, and they just kind of were like a light switch. They just all of a sudden just didn't give a shit. You'd put them with the females, and they just stopped, and they wouldn't even breed with them, and I had to use other males.
Dude, okay, electrolyte water. How's that implemented? Like, is it like do you orally just do it yourself, or do you just put it in a bowl of water? Like, how does that work? I'm curious.
I put it in a bowl. Hognose are pretty predictable when they're going to drink. I do small water bowls. I don't like to really leave stagnant bowls in there. And hognose also can be a bit clumsy and weird. And it's because of their setups in captivity versus how they live in the wild. Like a lot of times I put their faces right in the water. And as I put their faces in the water, a lot of them will start to drink. Yeah. And so like if I move them out and I'm like, oh, they're water bowls. Like, cause I use small water bowls. I'm like, oh, they knocked it over. It's been dry for a day or two. I was like, this one's definitely going to drink some. Or after a big feeding, if I feed all my hognose a bunch and then I go to give them fresh water, they're pretty much all drinking. And you can use that Pedialyte. The flavorless Pedialyte. That's good. Especially if you have a smaller collection and you just need a few bottles of it. Or you just need that on hand for like a female that's like, you think might struggle or is struggling with, let's say she has some eggs still stuck in her or whatever, or a male's breeding a lot. You want to try that, go ahead. But I use the chicken and duckling electrolytes that have They also have like it's just electrolytes with minerals and vitamins in it.
Wow. And Dave, have you ever heard about that method before?
I've heard that with some other species, and again, when it comes to Junior and what he does over there, there's gonna be like 40 other things he's gonna bring up just like that.
I love it. And from what you're experiencing with this, it's just giving him more stamina and more energy, getting back into like the game, I guess you could say.
Well, I've experienced dehydration myself and everything, and have been run down. And electrolytes definitely help me. So even if you're not seeing the effects, they're definitely going to be helping them to a small degree. So if anything's going to help an animal or give it an edge or get it to like bounce back, let's say she laid eggs or male's just done breeding, and I'm like, oh, this guy's thirsty. I'm going to put electrolyte water in there. Like I had, actually, this is an interesting one. This is like not one that probably people would want to talk about, but I wanted to actually bring it up in like either a YouTube video or whatever. I'll bring it up here. Actually, I got, luckily it was only one rack of snakes because I was feeding them fuzzies that came from, and the thing is like mice are getting a lot more, higher demand, right? Yeah. Prices are going up. People are having a hard time finding them. I'm even hearing places that are supposed to only be bringing their own mice that they have been buying from labs because of the demand.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when you're doing all this and there's a lot of money involved and there's an urgency, there's going to be more mistakes made. Yep. Well, I got some fuzzies that look clean. These things actually had salmonella. So only one rack of Hognose got salmonella. And the thing is, most people think species reptiles can get salmonella and they can just carry it. Salmonella can actually, depending on the species that's getting it, and probably the species of salmonella, there's like hundreds of species of salmonella.
Well, did these mice come from a frozen thawed company? Like, I'm sorry to make it. Okay, a pretty big one?
Pretty big one.
Dude, oh my God. Now listen, I don't want names, but listen, I got to tell you right now, this has been, I have a close friend of mine who went through this, and it was kind of like, what, really? And all he told me is like, don't get mice. Just don't get mice from him. I'm like, okay, that's fine. And then sure enough, you start hearing these stories, and it's always wrapped around the mice. It's always wrapped around the mice, dude. So that's fucking scary, dude.
Yeah, really salmonella is zoonotic as fuck too. So if your mice have the salmonella, it can give it to a snake, and it can give it to you. So you gotta be careful with it. Right. So yeah, salmonella. There's just so many species of salmonella, but anyhow, like these Hognose weren't just like there was something a little off about them, and they weren't gaining the weight quite back. And then when I fed them the one fuzzies, like they got like it's the same fuzzy brand, and then when they got their last meals, their stomachs bloated up. I mean, I knew it wasn't anything like cryptosis because I'm like, these can't have cryptosis; it's impossible. But I paid to have an in-depth necropsy at a university laboratory. So they did a whole stomach flush. They took multiple cultures. I said, do all parasites, bacteria. It was like close to $800, and they're like, they have salmonella. I'm like, you think they have fucking salmonella? And I knew right where it came from. I was like, the only thing it could have come from is the friggin' mice, because if the mice are being kept dirty and they have salmonella, they can give it to a snake. So what I did with these guys was it was pretty cool as far as rebounding them, because when you see an animal that's not healthy, especially multiple of them, and then you turn them around and they're now all completely healthy and thriving, it's a very good feeling. So these Hognose were in bad shape. So the one thing I did automatically was just deworm them. I ran them on antibiotics. And then I actually moved them into all brand new containers and brumated them. And they were kind of still thin. I was like, but at the point I was like, well, when they're cool and everything, their metabolism slow down, they're not going to be really using their fat reserves anyway. So I'm going to brumate these, put their bodies in a natural state of rest. And then I took the whole RHACS system and we wiped it down with high-grade peroxide and washed the whole thing out and let it air dry, because salmonella hates dryness, really hates it. And we left it air dry for a month, even though that was overkill. With the high-grade peroxide, it's probably certainly dead. Within a week after that, it was definitely dead. It's not going to live on that surface anymore. But so then I reset them up, I was giving them electrolyte water, ran them on antibiotics, and these things are like monsters now for food. They're like every day when I'm going to feed, well, not every day, but every time I go to feed them, they're really ravenous. They're gaining their weight back, and they look really, really good.
Well, that is pretty scary. How long ago did this happen, Junior?
Very recently. I just got done fucking medicating these guys, and they're finally looking good, and they look perfect now or close to it. Some are still a little. This was just like a month ago where I kind of had them back in their rack, or about 3 weeks ago where they were back in their rack and everything. They were actually So then I actually had to have other stuff tested, especially I had a shipment going to Indonesia, and my same veterinarian is like, well, you got these other Hognose going to Indonesia and they need this a health inspection. And most of the other ones are just visual, but for Indonesia, they have to have a checked off for a fecal. And so I was like, no, I was like, those will be fine. I was like, those were different feeders. There's no issues in that section. Those are baby
Right.
you know, hognose and everything. That was just my one male breeder rack that got fed those fuzzies. Thank God. And so, but you got, you know, I'm going to run more tests, but so far everything's been coming up negative for salmonella. Salmonella is terrible.
Wow, man.
But curable.
Yeah, but in some snakes, you know, like let's say the average keeper just doesn't spot it and just notices their snake kind of acting weird. Some of them can live through it, right? I guess, right? But it's just not good. I mean,
it's probably based on different species. Also depends on the species of salmonella. You know, I hear of like turtles and tortoises that can have it. Varanids. I don't know a whole lot about varanids. Varanids really interest me. I like them a lot, but I really don't know that much about them. But I do know they're tough as nails, and I feel like those things can have like pretty much anything, and like nothing really fucks with them as long as they're healthy. Like, you know, kind of like alligators. Like alligators, they can have like limbs, like a limb ripped off, and they can be living in like basically sewage, and they won't get infections. And I know varanids, and they've done studies on Komodo dragons, and they're very similar. And I'm sure other varanids are probably close to that. But I know varanids, like people are saying, like, hey, you know, they can have, you know, worms or parasites, and they don't seem to affect them at all. So they're a species, like, especially I see people feeding them raw stuff all the time. I'm sure they can take in salmonella, and for them, it doesn't do anything. Like buzzards, they're immune to botulism. Varanids, you know, where they come from, what they eat, they probably are immune, or salmonella doesn't affect them. Certain species of salmonella are probably going to be different depending on the species of snake or reptile in general. And, you know, salmonella, like a fat-tailed gecko gets salmonella, or leopard gecko, they're going to get really sick from it, and they can die. But another species gets salmonella, it might not even phase it, or its body might even full-on destroy it, possibly. I'm not sure.
I have to ask you, did you go to this company and be like, yo, this is what the deal is, or did you not even bother?
No, because they sell a lot, and, you know, it's a tough one because
You don't have to get in too many details about this, because the more you talk, it's going to be just throwing names out there, and that's
guys,
a tough one, man.
I know. I don't want no names to be thrown, but when do we have to do something when there's case after case after case of this happening? How do we just let this slide? Like, how do we, like I said, there's people who can't recover from such a loss. And mind you, the buddy that I talked about, he lost like 4 emeralds. I think, like a couple super dwarf ticks. And I was like, dude, I would fucking lose my mind. And apparently, like, they gave him like, oh, well, you can't just like say it's from us. And it was kind of like, sorry, like there's no way of proving it. And, you know, he's also
probably could just get some more feeders from them than have their body, the mice tested if they come back for salmonella, and they'd come back for the same species, because that's the one thing. I've actually gotten salmonella a few times. First time was food poisoning in Japan.
I wish that on nobody. And I there's some people I can't stand, but I wish that on nobody, man. That's probably one of the worst shit I've ever gone through is food poisoning. You want to talk about just being miserable and there's nothing you could do about it. Oh my God. That's the, like, I remember sleeping next to a fucking toilet, bro, like literally hugging the toilet while like that end's coming out and this end's coming out. Like, it was like same time motion, bro. Terrible. I thought I was going to die, and people die off that shit for sure.
They do. Yeah. You can die from it.
Damn. Anyways. So, okay, listen, my thing is always about awareness, because guys, as much as I love bringing OGs onto the show, it's all about the future, right? It's all about the people coming into this. And it's just not fair for somebody to be referred a company to go to, and then they go to that company, and then boom, a whole rack of fucking snakes die. And then, I mean, what are you going to do? Like I said, some people can't recover off shit like that. So we don't need to find an answer now, but I feel like at some point we need to discuss on how this needs to be addressed and how this needs to be fixed, because this could turn into another problem. Just saying, it can.
Yeah, no, I agree. The one thing is, like, a lot of people are against lab mice, but the one thing I like about lab mice is, like, these are from control groups, and in labs they have to be kept very sterile. So they shouldn't have any, you know, infectious diseases within a lab environment. And, you know, like, I've heard other weird things too, like people saying they got coccidia, their snakes, or, you know, whatever species got coccidia from mice, which is actually like it's basically impossible unless somebody's infecting them with coccidia, reptile species of coccidia with the mice. Because mice, even wild mice, they often have coccidia. That's why cats, like outdoor cats, can get coccidia a lot. A lot of wild mice carry coccidia. You know, captive mice sometimes can have coccidia. but that's a mammalian species of coccidia, and it can't be spread to reptiles. So when people say like, "Oh, my one reptile had coccidia," or it's definitely they're getting a misdiagnosis, or maybe not. There could just be coccidia in the stool of the snake from the mouse, and it's actually mammalian coccidia, and the lab's misidentifying it. It depends. Like some of these cheaper tests too, I don't really quite trust them.
Yeah, it was about 5 years back, I want to say. I got an order of jumbo mice one time, and a couple of the bags looked a little suspect, and one bag had one in there that was just a little dark, I guess you could say. I sent that in to get looked at. It came back positive for staph.
Really? Staph aureus, huh?
Yeah.
That kind of makes sense. There is staph over everything, but if that mouse was like really grody, maybe the thing was just riddled with staph.
I think that's all it was. I think it was just one real rough one. I ended up trashing the entire order after I got that one back, but that one mouse just stuck out to me, and I just figured I'd get it looked at.
What's crazy is like, you said, Junior, there was nothing to stand out on these fuzzies, like nothing.
They look good. They were clean as shit. That's the one thing. They didn't even look dirty.
Yeah.
So
I've got mice with like dark bellies, and I'm like, oh, fuck that. I'm not doing, and I toss them if I see anything like dark or discolored down there. That's the, but also too, like, I mean, I don't breed my own rats because holy shit, I'm good on that. But I also have mice that I work just because I don't want to deal with this. Since it's all about the mice, that's supposedly the problem. I rather, if I can, just breed my own mice. So why don't you breed your own mice, Jeff?
I do breed some of my own mice. I would need such an immense amount of mice. These hognose, they eat so much. I have a rack and a half of mice, and it like barely feeds like a portion of my collection. It might feed like 7% of my collection. So I'd have to turn into essentially like a big mouse breeder and everything. And then actually you run the risk of like getting things like salmonella and even my own mouse collection if they're not being kept up enough, or small enough colonies, or not clean enough. So you gotta be careful with that. You gotta be careful for wild mice getting in and everything like that too. I saw this one guy that has a mouse breeder. Dave, you'll like this. This guy was telling about his experience. He's a really nice guy. I met him at the Sacramento Expo, and he was telling me all this shit he had to learn about the breeding mice and stuff, and all the issues he kept running into. And the one was like all of his exhaust fans were rusting out because of all the fucking ammonia in the air. Just because of this sheer amount of ammonia, that it rusted out his like exhaust fans in like a year's time.
Yeah, I had a buddy's place start fire one time because he blamed it on the ammonia, the exhaust fans, the air conditioners. The air conditioners would actually start on fire, and it took out his entire building pretty much for rodents.
The ammonia corroded everything and caused a fire, probably.
Fucked it all up, man.
Yeah, this mouse ammonia is like no joke. Yeah, so this guy was actually telling me to have less ammonia in their pee too. He was telling me like about diets you can do and everything to help that. But there's people that breed rats, and then African soft furs. They might be a little less likely to get these diseases, but rats probably are able to. They're able to get salmonella too. But they might just be the practices of keeping them and everything, and they might be a species that's less likely to get them just due to the way that they're bred and everything. Mice are kind of like really mass produced.
Okay, I get that. Hey, I want to jump back one thing I want to ask you earlier when you were talking about how you were surprised that hognose weren't more popular in the industry.
Yeah.
Sometimes, as our popularity in an industry here is built on a want for what we're doing overseas. Did you see a progression of different countries suddenly getting into them that you think has anything to do with like the big jump in the want, or was it the market here developed before it even went overseas?
Both for sure. The overseas market is definitely showed a strong interest in hognose, very, very strong, surprisingly strong. And then the United States, in general too, grew a lot. And now there's a lot of like, it's kind of like a domino effect. Like, even though somebody here selling hognose might not exactly see it because of the worldwide demand, it's definitely, having an increase just overall.
So what was the first country do you feel that really went, I want hognose, and what was the progression from there, country to country, if you even know what that was like?
It's really just like Hong Kong and China. Hong Kong and China, they really like hognose snakes. And what probably happened there was they were popular there, you know, just like a lot of other colubrids were. And I think just their uniqueness standing out and the new morphs and all that interest. And now you got a lot of people over there that are really interested in the high-end stuff, and they're very competitive. And, you know, this guy wants to have this high-end project, and this guy wants that. And, you know, the hognose morph mutations and stuff are definitely getting more exciting. And there's like some very cool combinations. So, you know, it's definitely really prompted all that.
When you so we talked about how you stumbled across your first Arctic for $55, and we'll say maybe 7 or 8 years later you proved that there was a dominant. When you first sold one of those supers, what did you have a price tag on that for?
First super I sold, like $6,500.
That's fair, but they held that price for a while then after that, right?
They did. They definitely took a little time for that price to come down. And at $6,500, if we're going with like current like insane inflation now, that's equivalent to like $9,000 probably, even though that wasn't that long ago. So yeah, the Super Arctics, and you know, even though that the Arctic project at one point, like in the probably around 2017, 18, had a bit of a slowdown. I mean, it's still important for morph combinations. I mean, you know, if you have hognose projects and you don't have Super Arctic, you're missing like a massive piece of the puzzle as far as color spectrums and just unique looks you can create and make. But, you know, Super Arctic by itself definitely is quite amazing. Actually, I have this one art. It's my friend Avery made it. You may have just seen it. It's a plain color, but that's a Super Arctic hognose there.
Yeah, I love that.
Okay, you know, listen, Junior, the painting above that, super sick. It looks like you just have a plug, buddy. I mean, can you hook me up? Let me know who your artist is, because I would love some shit like that. That is fucking sick.
She's got she's got a couple other projects she's working on for me. So I'm kind of selfish because people will think, oh man, I want her to do some stuff. I'm like, get away. She's got to do some other stuff first.
I want one of Dave.
You want one of Dave?
Yeah.
You know what's fucked up? When I saw that painting today, I thought the same thing.
You could do one. They just tell her, like, just give her an idea. Like, hey, have a picture of Dave. Like, I kind of want this. Tell her, like, do you want an abstract? Do you want realism? See, I like realism with abstract. So I go to Avery and I was like, hey, I got this idea for a playing card, King of Hogs. And, well, she called it King of Hogs. And I was like, it's just a King of Hearts playing card with a hognose. And I was like, I want it stabbing, like, or like, you know, since they play dead, feigning death, sword behind the head. And then she had the unique idea to have it stabbing right into a heart, have a bleeding heart. And then she really worked the whole issue that I couldn't figure out in my mind as far as how
the fine print.
Well, how to do the middle part, how to adapt it where it just doesn't look like a hognose running into another hognose. And I said to have it curled up at the body, and she did a stash with the body with this kind of figure 8 looping around, which came out like way better than I could have even imagined in my head. So she's really good. We're really good with working with one another. And yeah, she's very talented. She's very, very good. So yeah, she did the King Hog above it, the colored one, the painted one with all the multi-colors. And that's kind of how that all started. Was she reached out and she's like, I'd like to do like a piece for you. Like we were friends and we talked like, you know, here and there at that point. And you know, she wanted to do something. And I was like, well, if we do something, I was like, I want something really big. I don't want something small. And actually the cool thing that I learned through this process is I actually really, really like art, just as long as it is something that, you know, is to my liking or to my interest in everything, you know? So I was like, this is cool. So these aren't the last two. There's going to be more.
Nice.
Sick.
Very cool. Yeah, I love that, man. You'll have to send us a link that we can attach to the video a little bit later so we can give her a plug on her work.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah.
That'd be great. Kind of going back to the talk with the supers that you work with hognoses, you know, because if it's certain codons I choose to always keep in the ball python game are certain supers that just look amazing, right? Supers are kind of where'd Dave go?
Thanks, here.
He just walked over there.
Supers I feel like seem to be, I mean, do you know what the odds are off the top of your head, Dave, with ball pythons and what it takes to get a super? But I feel like it's hard.
It's 1 out of 4. It's like head-to-head breeding.
Okay, so is it the same thing with hognoses? I'm curious. Is it pretty hard to get a super when it comes to you doing certain pairings or whatnot?
Well, yeah, these mutant alleles all work the same. So if I have like incomplete dominant gene, and yeah, and bring them together, it's the same odds. Like, well, with hognose, you're gonna get a little better odds because some of my females are laying decent sized clutches. Like I had one female just like 16 eggs, and she's like a first year breeder. With a ball python, you know, you'd probably be really happy with like really happy with like 7 or 8 eggs for a first year breeder female, you know, like a nice 7 to 8 egg clutch. Well, you know, their clutches are definitely a little smaller. So it is a little easier to hit like, you know, multi genes and hognose comparatively to ball pythons.
Yes, sir.
Do you have a question, Dave? Because I could keep going. I don't want to short you out here.
Oh no, you're good, man. Yeah, just keep rolling, man. We're good.
All right. So, you know, listen, I can't help but to just like sit back, and obviously I don't have as many RHACS as you do. But I can't help but to love, like I'm at the level where I have freedom breeder RHACS and stuff like that. Like I never thought 5 years ago I'd even be at that level because how much of investment it is going from, you know, spending money on snakes and now you're spending money on these fucking RHACS, right? For you, has it always been was it always easy for you to invest into the best equipment because your dad, or was there a level in your experience where you had to work with what you had and then you were able to invest into the top-notch equipment? I'm curious.
I mean, here's the thing. My dad helped me out like a lot. He's a very good dad. He's a very good friend. Definitely, there was definitely some like good help. Like the one thing was, it's going to probably sound a little ridiculous. By the time I was like 18, basically my mom and dad said I'd get $1,500 as long as I never smoked or drank alcohol. And I didn't. So I got $1,500. You know what I did? I bought a half a freedom breeder rack at that time with that money. And when we did leopard and fantail geckos together, like initially, obviously, when we're getting into these projects, like at first I had like 3 or 4 leopard geckos, and my dad was getting more interested in it. And he goes, you want to just do this together? And he's like, I got a lot more money. And he goes, we can start buying some cool stuff. I was like, yeah, let's do that. And so then we had this book. It was a horrible book. I hated it because it would notate everything that he invested in. So then once we started making money, at first all the money had to go back to him with the leopard and fantail geckos and got to pay stuff off. And I get like a little bit here and there because I remember we had like an awesome show. And I got like, he's like, you could have like a few $100s, but then the rest of the money that was like there had to go back towards paying off stuff.
Right.
But, you know, then I lived at home for a very long time because my main objective was to just work on reptiles. And my mental state or my free time came last. It was more about breeding reptiles and keeping it like, and just going after projects and stuff.
You're obsessed.
So I was like, yeah, if I live at home for a longer period of time, I was like, that means I can get more stuff. But there was a time where that definitely became counterintuitive, and I was actually stunting myself because of the living situation. But then it also went on a little longer because of my health problems that kept arising here and there, and that kind of like really threw stuff off for a good bit. But, you know, yeah, it helped in many ways. And definitely having a supportive family is definitely crucial. Because let's say I grew up in a household where I had a dad that wasn't interested in reptiles or amphibians, or, you know, I wasn't allowed to keep anything. This wouldn't have all happened. I wouldn't have been able to. If I wasn't allowed to keep reptiles until I moved out, you know, then, you know, things would have definitely changed. And then I wouldn't have had to even, you know, I wouldn't have really been able to feed this interest I had for a long time if I wasn't able to keep stuff. So I'm always blown away by people that have kids and then their kids aren't allowed to do certain things just because their parent doesn't agree with it and it doesn't fit your ideologies.
Yeah, I mean, my mom was like, she put her foot down with me having a snake, and my dad just said, fuck it, he did it. But like, nothing went past us. Okay, I can't lie, I got an iguana too. But like, you know, like it was something where I just appreciate what I had. Like and that's why, you know, I never really knew other snake keepers, or like I never really like branched out because like I was like, man, I'm just lucky to have this. And I was a kid and I was just in my own world. And then I had no clue about this world, right? The world that we're talking about and that we're in now, until I was in like my early 30s, you know, and it changed everything. But, you know, it's kind of like how Dave said, fuck, man, like I only went to school because at one point my dad's like, listen, asshole, like you have colleges looking at you for baseball and like you need fucking grades. Like if you don't, and so that was my motivation. And I still somehow like fucking cheated my way through that. You know, I hated school. I always thought there was no point, but talk about biology and shit like that, genetics, like holy shit, like it would have changed everything. It would have made me cared about learning. You know what I mean? So that's why I always admire when I talk to someone who's either young in the game or who's been in the game for a long time at a young age, because you guys are built differently, man. I don't care what anyone says. When you're geeked out over something like animals and you're paying this close attention at a young age for a long time, you're just a different type of individual. That's all I got to say. And I'm telling you from my own experience meeting people since coming into the hobby, like you and Dave, you guys are different in all good ways. Like I'm just telling you, look at this guy right here, Dave. I
forgot how scary it was in this parking lot, by the way. Some of my best times and worst times have been in this parking lot.
Oh, that's not behind your building, man. That's like in a parking lot somewhere.
Yeah, that bowling alley I used to hang out at.
It's abandoned now, bro. It's abandoned.
Shit's been abandoned since I moved here 4 years ago.
Really?
Oh yeah, I used to come out here. It's just
got that bowling banner on going on behind you.
Yeah, I got that. Yeah, you know what? I thought about buying that from them because I had so many good times in front of it with the old podcast, but I might just revise it at home.
They might throw it away at some point. They might be like, you know what? And then you kind of come back and it's gone.
Bro, this place is gonna be here forever. No one's ever gonna buy it. Like it's gotta. We looked into it. We thought we'd turn into a reptile building at one point, but no, this place is dead in the water.
There's one thing I want to do is a good shout out basically to my mom, because my mom's actually very important part of this too, because she didn't care that I owned reptiles and amphibians, and she definitely supported that. My mom's overly nice and definitely a bit of an enabler, so she was ready to enable any interest that I had and everything. And so I mean, she was definitely really important, just like my dad was with the whole growth of this.
I mean, she still comes by your place a few nights a week to help you out with things, right?
He works for me full time now for the past 3 years. So she would like help me on and off, like 5, 6, 7 years ago if somebody didn't show up or if I needed help. She'd help out here and there. And then like really about 3.5 years ago, when COVID hit, she would already kind of run errands every now and then because she liked going out and doing stuff. And so if I needed something like supplies or whatever, she'd, help get me stuff. But now she's like, she likes coming out and hanging out here because she's a total mom. So she still likes to try to take care of me like a kid. She like still messes with stuff and organizes things, makes the outdoor patio look nice and stuff. Oh, I got lights for this. I did this. So she's always doing stuff like that. And then she helps with the reptiles too. She takes care of my geckos. She manages all the geckos. She helps with the hognose sometimes. She reminds me of stuff and appointments, supplies. So she's basically like an all-around assistant.
Was she like that back in the day with you and your pops? Like when your pops was heavy in it or no?
No, not really. She would help like when we were out of town if something needed to be checked for for laying eggs or, like not really. She wasn't, she would help out here and there. Well, she would help us prepare for all the trips. If we were ever doing a reptile show, she would get all the utilities and stuff we needed for that. Snacks, drinks, make sure we had everything. She would do all that. So
what's the deal with you in shows right now? How many shows are you typically vending? How many shows are you typically vending a year and that sort of thing? Let's kind of talk about shows.
Very atypical, because there was a point where I was vending close to like no shows, and I was only really doing Tinley and maybe 1 or 2 Cleveland shows. And like there was a year where the only show I was doing was Tinley, March and October. That's it. And then this past year, I started doing more, and especially around the winter time. I did 3 shows 1 month, and they were all ones I had to fly out for. And so basically, and the ones were back-to-back weekends. One in Sacramento, Portland, and then I went to Salt Lake, but Salt Lake was spread apart in 2 weeks. And I kind of wanted to do that just because I knew I could. But I was like, this will be fun just to travel a ton and just to kind of just push myself to be in a rush just to do stuff. So, it was nice. I got to meet a lot of awesome people. I got to go to shows I've never been to before. Sales were pretty good. And, again, it was like the biggest plus was just traveling. And my dad went with me to 2 of them. We went to look at the redwood trees and stuff. So turned it into like, definitely kind of like a vacation trip.
I saw that. I was like, really like, I knew where you were, and I was like, "Holy shit! This fool's in some dreamy part of California and in northern Pacific Northwest type area." But dude, how do you get all your animals to show if you're not the ones taking it? Like, if you're the one,
ship them. Yeah, you can ship them. You can use you ship your reptiles. Just ship them right to a FedEx hub, pick them up. You can also do air cargo. A lot of times I just ship FedEx because it's very,
How many snakes, Junior, are we talking about?
I take a lot. I take more than necessary. I was like, well, I'm already going out there. I might as well bring a good selection because the problem is if you don't bring something, then somebody asks for it. So yeah, I bring around like 150. I feel like sometimes people scan your table to look for the morph you don't have, and then to ask you for it just to make you feel like shit that you don't have it.
That's fucking crazy. But what? Okay, but and so for instance, as far as like certain like displays and stuff like that, like how do you get all that stuff in like your banner?
I use deli cups, man. It's like really like old school. Basically, it's just clear deli cups all lined up, and it's really easy for people to look at them. It's easy to organize them and stuff like that. It's easy for transportation and cleaning and all of that. And you're talking to one of the show kings here, Dave. He travels to more
Dave's
shows.
Savage, but Dave, I get it because Dave just drives. He just goes. Like
I might even get worse in some cases. He's like, yeah, I'm driving here. I'm like, how far is that? He's like 22 hours. I'm like, man, that's brutal.
I want Dave.
Tired, buddy.
It's convenient though, because you got everything with you.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, man. If somehow I get Joe Rogan rich off this podcast, I want Dave to just be luxuriously taken care of for the rest of his life, and I would do that for him. I swear to God. I'm talking like flying him everywhere, like top-notch weed to smoke, top-notch food to eat, 24/7 for Dave. That's my goal, man. After I take care of my parents and my wife, but I'm just saying, you're there, buddy. I'm telling you right now.
Fine, man. Yeah, we'll talk again in like 10, 15 years. I hear you, man. No rush.
I like that. He's like all the weed for him, like make it mandatory. Like you have to up no matter where you go, dude.
Well,
you're not allowed to. You're cut off unless you smoke this in succession.
Well, one of my favorite stories about MJ that I didn't even realize was my favorite story is when he reminded me that I used to steal drugs from him when I thought he was just trying to be nice.
Oh, yeah.
You hear about that one, Jeff?
No, I haven't heard about that one. I feel like this isn't the first time. Dave's making it sound. I think he's done this to two people.
Well, I mean, it was at a point in my reptile career where I wanted this guy's friendship more than anything, and it was like, he could have took my wallet at that point if he really wanted to, but at the end of the day, I'm sitting. This is after a moment where I think I tried introducing myself and it was really awkward and it just didn't work out. And I was like, that's bad. I don't think he likes me. And then we're like kind of face to face at the bar. It all seems good. And I know he smokes. So I pull out my jar, which was the only jar I had. Right. But it had a good amount of weed. I want to say I had at least a good quad, right? Which is 2/8 for anyone who wants to know. But anyway, so all I had in Texas, which you shouldn't have weed in Texas anyways. But anyways, here I am in Texas. And I'm like, this is going to be my moment to kind of get Dave to be like, oh, man, you're cool, And so I'm like, hey, Dave. And so I put the whole jar on the table and I slide it to him. And he's like on the other side of the table. And he slides and he goes, opens it. He goes, oh, thanks, bud. He closes it, puts it in his pocket. And like, I was kind of just trying to show him, like, hey, man, we're going to go smoke later, man. Like, check out this Cali stuff that I brought. And he took it as a gift.
I was like, look at this baller just sending me some weed over here for free. I was like, fuck, I'm not going to say no.
I was like, well, I was like, at least I have dabs in the room. I was like,
I can see the confusion. I can see how you got confused.
I don't care. It's Dave, though. Anyways, and it still makes a great story every time we say it.
Love it, buddy.
Yeah, man. But, what would you say the one show... Okay, because would you say as time goes on, Junior, shows will become less of a priority for you, or do you feel like it's going to be the opposite?
Well, I used to do a lot of shows, especially with my dad. At one point, we were doing like tons of shows. I did a lot of shows from the time I was in my like mid-teens to like, probably like early mid-20s. When my dad stopped, like when we stopped breeding geckos together, roughly like, so that was like 12 years ago. I kind of slowed way down on shows. He still did corn snakes, and he kind of wanted to just pursue his art stuff and do things like that and just take it easier. And, the last like few years, like especially around like even before COVID, I wasn't really doing that many shows anymore. Really in the past year, I started doing a lot more because I'm like, well, I have more availability. I'm getting more requests for shows. So I was like, there's definitely an interest there. And I was like, let's just do this and have fun. And I didn't really care if these things were really that lucrative or not. Because I was like, these are a tax write-off. I'll be going to cool, interesting places. I'm still going to make trips out of it. And, end up having good conversations with people, meeting people from, just a hognose community. and just like, it's really cool just to go out and just, spend some time working, but, maybe just making, just a little more interesting.
So,
yeah, go Dave.
oh, I'm sorry, MJ. You talk about my resume when it comes to shows, but like, so Junior, am I right or wrong? You vended the first Tinley?
Second Tinley. I've been vending Tinley since 2003. Actually, that was the first time I met you, MJ, was at that at the Tinley show where you're like, hey, come here and sit down, and you're doing that like 5-minute kind of like like interview. Dude. And I was like, I remember it was like back in that corner, and I was like I was already cold as shit. And then Dave like, you handed me a beer, and then Dave's like, he can't drink beer, his stomach's bad.
Stomach, right? Yeah. You're feeling okay. You're feeling okay that weekend though, right?
Yeah. I'm pretty good now.
I was gonna say, how are you now? Like, what's the status with that? Is he just coming and going randomly still? And for the people don't know, just tell people it's a stomach. It's like a gastral thing, right? That you have.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to your gastrointestinal tract, that's like where 80% of your immune system's at, and it's made up of a lot of really important balance of microbes. Just your gut flora. So I eat a lot of kimchi. I eat a lot of fermented food. I'm on 2 supplements right now that are really helpful. So I kept just trying different supplements. And actually, I started taking this supplement that wasn't even supposed to help your GI tract. It was just supposed to help regulate your hormones and boost your testosterone naturally. And I started taking that, and I started getting better like immediately. So, yeah. I mean, I have years of like, where I was having to take steroids, corticosteroids, which have a similar effect of anabolic, but, I had to take them and to help with the inflammation. And I took them definitely too long. They definitely messed with my adrenal glands pretty good. Doesn't take long.
Yeah, I tell people about it every once in a while, but there was one time when we were living together. God, man, were you in the hospital for about a week or like 4 or 5 days that one time?
Then I think I was back again, like Dave's seen me pretty sick before. He's seen sick Jeff a few times.
Yeah, but it was so discouraging. Like when you hear him talk about it now and like, things he's doing as a remedy, I think when you had that long stay, your mom was there for the first couple days, and then I came in for like 12 or 24 hours. And was it like on the hour they had a new doctor come in and they'd read your chart? They would talk about your history. They would ask you about things you've done, what works and what hasn't. And then at the end, they were just like, well, we hope you feel better. And then another doctor would come in. And that's all I felt that was for years with you.
Oh, yeah, kind of. GI doctors are pretty limited in their way to approach and remedy, like, these gastrointestinal inflammation diseases. I've had it for a long time. I've done a lot of reading and research on it. I think a lot of it can be definitely remedied or improved greatly with proper diet, establishing good gut flora, and making sure your hormones are in check and everything like that. Because like I'm doing pretty good, and I'm not on any prescribed medication. And there was a few years where I was really, really sick, and the only thing that would help me were steroids, and they're always just trying to give me stuff that turns off your immune system, which, for certain people, they do need it. I'm not saying this is going to work for absolutely everybody. There's definitely people with Crohn's disease that are significantly worse, or it affects other parts of their GI tract. And some people are more probably immunocompromised, or their immune systems, like, let's say their immune system's actually attacking them because that's what they're supposed to be. But with mine, I was strongly believed it was due to just hormonal disruptions and gut flora damage over a course of years of getting, food poisoning, gastrointestinal infections, and then antibiotics, which are wiping out my good gut flora. And so reestablishing that stuff can be a long, slow process.
Right.
Crazy. But it's crazy because, like, I don't know, like I've gone through quite a bit of health, not internally, but like, man, just injuries. I just went through like a ring of just surgeries, and it was like kind of like, holy shit, like when am I gonna be normal again? And it just kind of I don't know, when you do feel good, you just appreciate it, you know what I mean? And
pretty much. I don't think I'll ever feel normal, but I think I feel like pretty close. It's been so fucking long. I was sick really bad for like 4 years. Now that I feel like this, like, I don't know, I'm definitely, the one thing is I have the mentality that I'm younger than I actually am, because I'm youngish, but I'll still run and jump. I go out like herping and stuff, and if I'm bored, like actually Avery wanted to go herping, so when she's out doing the art, that's the first day, because her boyfriend is actually over a week before. We're really good friends, and we went herping and did all this stuff. So she sees all this shit we're doing, and she thinks she's like, oh, this is amazing. But she's just,
right.
we're going herping here and there real quick. Mostly we're working. And so we went herping, and there was this one board. This thing was like glued into the ground. It hadn't been flipped in years. And most of the boards there were like unflippable. They were just like in the mud, grass was over them, and they were just so stuck down. There was nothing that could even get under them anyway. Well, we found one board where there was a hole and there was still some like gap in there. And I had to lift that thing, and it was like this is probably the hardest thing I had to like pick up and lift. And she's like, just give up. I was like, no, I'm going to get it. And you just heard all the roots ripping because it was like a big full sheet of plywood. And it's ripping all along it. It took me about a few minutes, and I finally got it. It had 7 garters under it. But, I'll still run and jump over stuff. I still think that I'm like 20, even though I'm not.
Samesies, buddy. Samesies.
Dave's just like that, too. So we got to get together, Dave, and go fishing and stuff.
Oh, I was going to say, when are you guys going to go fishing next? I'm wondering when the next fishing trip is going to be with you two.
Oh, well, I invited him out now and next week and the week after that, but it's the busy time of the year. The problem is with Junior is it's always the busy time of the year. The motherfucker never stops working.
It is, because I got to pair all, there's only a few locks over here. These hoggos got to get all flipped. I'm going to probably put them back on coarse sandy chips, and they need to get locked up. But, I could treat it like a reptile show, and I could find a 2.5 day window, maybe 3 days. I'm thinking I've just been so into flying lately. I won't even drive, Dave. I'm just going to fly through us and stuff and just have you pick me up, and then we can just get right into the fishing.
Well, let me see how I do on Saturday, man. If I have a good Saturday, I'm going to tell you to get down here whenever you can. But you've already missed trout season. I can still get you on some, but we're talking striped bass and walleye now for a little bit.
Striped bass sounds fun.
You'll enjoy that once we figure out what they want.
Okay.
Junior, I have to ask you, let's say you met somebody, or let's say a good friend of yours just gave you a bunch of good interest as far as getting into the hognose game. How would you recommend someone getting into the hognoses, from the beginning?
Well, it really depends what somebody's comfortable with, but I would ask them what morphs they like and pretty much their budget. The one thing is with hognose, it's it's funny, but it's not like a sales pitch or anything like that. But I'm like, man, they all sell pretty well. There are some morphs that don't sell as well as others, but even the morphs that aren't that popular, in some cases, the morph combinations with them are always popular. There isn't one multi-gene hognose, other than there are some where they're a little redundant, where they have let's say toffee belly and albino together. That's not really improving the albino much because it's already amelanistic, and toffee is a form of T positive. And toffee does seem to manipulate pigment a little bit. So sometimes you can see this vague difference with these double visuals, they're a little brighter and cleaner, but it's a bit redundant. So there's not a drastic difference. So I wouldn't pay a lot for certain double visuals of certain things, but the toffee glow really isn't that much anyway. But with projects like toffee glows and stuff like that, that kind of reminds me of the whole leopard gecko hobby and industry, which is a little older as far as genetics go and what people want, because demand and then even just people's preferences, opinions start to actually kind of have an effect on the community. Because leopard geckos, they don't want the albinos being mixed together because they want to have them separate. And I look at toffee like that with albino. I don't want toffee and albino together because I want my albino projects, whether I'm going on say really nice red albinos or making snow combinations with combining xanthic and albino, or I'm making super arctic sunburst or arctic sunburst. I really don't want toffee in there that much. I'd rather just have my toffee projects over here so I know that what I'm getting, because it sucks to try to make, let's say, a toxic animal and then all of a sudden the albino gene's there and I'm hitting a snow toxic. So now it looks like a snow and or an atoxic there, and then it's it's not really that much different. I'm not saying they're bad projects to have and you shouldn't do it. I'm just saying it's not much of an interest to me because I like to keep things a little organized in that respect. But I don't really have any toffee albino combinations. I kind of went on a tangent on there. Your real question, I would just invest in something really cool, morphs that help improve other project combinations. So super arctic, sable, Swiss chocolate's new. So if there's some Swiss chocolate available, I'd say get a few of those. You don't have to go deep. I really like polygenics. So that really nice red albinos that you were showing earlier, MJ.
Yeah.
The polygenics are one guy was actually, he is getting some from me. He goes, these just don't seem that popular right now. And there's other stuff that's more popular.
Right.
But the polygenic stuff is really overlooked. And you know what my favorite morphs are? and projects are the ones that are overlooked. When I see that, like, hey, this project is really good and you can do a lot with this and everybody's overlooking it, that's my favorite project on the face of the planet, because I'm like, this is going to be a lot of fun.
And those projects become less and less and less. Like, think about the ball python game, right? Like, good luck trying to get your hands on something that someone else isn't already working with. Like, it's damn near impossible. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, Hognose have like new frontier, while ball pythons, unless there's a new gene being imported. Yeah, but I mean, there's new like if you want to call them rediscoveries, or like, you know, just people like that, like projects that were overlooked. There are projects that are still like that, like chocolate. Like, I remember seeing super chocolates and super chocolate like ghosts at the Bells when I was like 20, 22.
Wow.
And
crazy.
these things were like, I can't remember if the super chocolate itself was $2,000, and I think they're like heck ghost. And then regular chocolate, you get a regular chocolate heck goes for $250, and there was just so many other projects coming out, people overlooked them. Now people are like, man, these really deep, thick, rich colored animals with this big, wide, wobbly pattern make really cool, you know, combinations. They really enhance and really, you know, make some really big, bold, beautiful coloration and really busy pattern that with nice blushing in it. So now they're really popular, and that's actually genes have been floating around for a long time.
That's one thing that you know, I really love, like, being in different communities in the hobby, is because every community has a different mindset on breeding. And, you know, you really nailed it with the ball python thing, because back in the day we had so much stuff, you know, right away it was like, what's the super? Do we like the super? Is it a fatal super? Now I'm going to move on to this new morph that came out 2 minutes later. And, you know, it's such a weird thing, but like, you know, the special ball python that was meant to do crystals, and that was all we did with it. Now we're making special clowns. Never would have thought they would have looked as good as they did. Like, that was a overlooked gene, because it was easy to overlook genes when you got a lot. Your community, man, Hognose for a while there, you guys were playing with what, 5, 6 genes, maybe less, and then it kind of picked up from there.
Yeah.
So,
that's one part of the polygenics too, to selectively line breeding. Sometimes you just got to make your own shit. You know, there weren't many Hognose morphs, so I'm like, well, I want some like really nice reds. I like yellow. I've noticed too, like when I started, there weren't really that many yellowish Hognose. So, and everybody was line breeding for red phase, and so I started with this original wild. Actually, the funny thing is, the founding Hognose for my Lemon Ghost project was actually my first Hognose I ever got when I was 9 years old. And you know, I didn't like breed them like right away. And I actually ended up getting a wild caught female for him. You know, probably about like 6-8 months later at some point. But you know, the selectively line breeding is really good for, like, especially if there's not a lot of genes out there. But yeah, ball pythons, there's just so much going on, and there's so much just chasing that people are definitely overlooking things. I mean, look at Desert Ghost is like ultra popular now. Those things have been out forever.
Don't tell me that, goddamn.
well, you know what? Here's a good one, man. Junior, you did a trade deal one time, and you got that female pastel heterotic xanthic DG female in.
Yeah.
You kept her for like 4 years. I think you had like $200, $400, $600 in her, and she was already a subadult when you got her. Didn't you sell that animal for $3,200 back in like 2000 or 2020 or 21?
Late 2020. I got $3,600 for her.
Yeah.
I traded like a $2,000 snake for her, but I also got some piebalds too at the time.
Yeah, it was a group deal.
Yeah, I watched this one meme, and it's like about cars. I like cars, but I'm not a big car person. Like, I drive a Honda CR-V because it makes sense. But you know, there's this guy that posted his video, and it was showing an old Auto Trader book, and it wasn't from that long ago, like mid 2000s, late 2000s, and it's showing all these Supras and all these other cars for like $4,000, and these cars are now going for 30, 40, 60 grand. And it's like, you could do that with Desert Ghost, because I know with Desert Ghost, you know, you could get combinations pretty cheap, or not cheap, but you know, you could get a pastel Desert Ghost 10 years ago for $1,500 probably, from the right person. I know my cousin Thomas produced some, and he is selling them for around that much, but he wasn't really trying hard. They may have been a little more at the time, but you know, I remember he had Yellow Belly and pastel Desert Ghost, and that's about 10 years ago, and they weren't like crazy amount. And you could have bought a lot of Desert Ghosts with hets, or you know, one or two incomplete dominant genes with het DG for probably not that much.
Yep. And, you know, it's not like we didn't know they were beautiful animals. You know, I always go back and talk about like 2010 and 11 when Nerd would show up with like 3,000 gram lemon blast back then. They were just glowing on his table for the DG project and other stuff. And we knew it was a good project. Some people stuck it out. We all had some around, but there's been a lot of throwaway ball pythons over the years, and that it was kind of a throwaway, man. And, you know, me and Bob used to talk about this a lot at the shows like 7-8 years ago. He thought it was a branding issue, and I really think it was. I think it got looped in with the Desert Project, which was a codom. They were so fucking similar in appearance that I think one brought the other one down.
Yeah, they probably definitely did. And I think there's like, it might have been I don't know what you want to call it. I'll just make up a name on the spot, call it ball python syndrome or or whatever. Not just that, but the thing is, there's this or trend syndrome, but there'd be so many people that just like, once a project was out there for a bit, they just moved to something else, even though, like, you know, Desert Ghost was really good for combinations. But, you know, and then it was a big ball python breeder that I've known for a long time. And he's actually responsible for a lot of importation of new genes. He's telling me, he goes, well, you know what the problem with Desert Ghosts are? He goes, they don't look that good as babies. And he goes, this is a market that's based mostly on how cool the baby looks. And that's what he's telling me, like, and like, you know, and I'm sure that wasn't his full interpretation, but that's what he told me pretty much almost verbatim. But, you know, now that's the selling feature. But he told me that was like 12, 15 years ago. He goes, the problem, he goes, these things take like, you know, months or like a year to really start really looking good. Or I don't know what the actual age is where they start to really pop. I'd imagine it's around 6 or 8 months. But, you know, that's actually the selling feature of that gene now. I mean, that's like the biggest selling feature. And it should have been the selling feature the whole time. And not so much, but just the project feature. I should say that because not trying to make it sound like marketing terms, because it's really about the project features of how beautiful that animal is. And it's something that stays good with age. It's like, if I was to work with like exanthic ball pythons, I wouldn't do any exanthic combo without DG. I'd make DG, if I wanted to do exanthic whatever, it would also have to have DG in it simultaneously, just because of what DG does with the exanthic and everything, and just improving it, highlighting it, and actually keeping it looking like a bright, clean exanthic animal through its whole life.
So it's fairly easy why we could say DG is what DG is now, because now DG isn't being brought to with just DG in it. DG is now a combo with other recessives that are just like, holy shit. Like, you know, DG Clown obviously is one, right? But, you know, we have people, and I hate always bringing up Justin, but fuck, he's the man I can always think of who posts something and you go, well, holy shit, you know, like, look at this baby. And now we talk about something that is being drawn to as a baby and blowing your mind, but keeping the beauty as it gets older, you know? Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to say here's the thing, like, you know, we're talking about DG stuff, right? Have you heard about the white lace gene yet? Have you seen white lace?
Yeah, they look good, and those actually improve with age too, like DG.
It's nuts. No, so, you know, just at Justin's house, you know, and this is right when I'm like investing in DG Clown stuff, right? And I'm talking baby head stuff, right? And I'm like, I can't wait. And Justin's like, yeah, here's an adult DG Clown. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. He's like, you want to see something else? I'm like, yeah. He's like, this is a white lace clown. And I'm like, why is this better looking? I couldn't believe it. It was a better version of a DG Clown. I couldn't believe it. I'm not shitting you guys. Same age, adult, female, everything. And I was irritated, don't get me wrong, but I was like, what the fuck? And here we are now, you know? So, I mean, you can't go wrong now. I mean, now put lace into DG, and it's like, it's just endless. It's just really endless, you know? But got to pay to play. Got to tell you that much.
Yeah, no, I think those two genes are very similar in a sense on what your end goal is. One being recessive, one, of course, being codam. I love them both. I'll be honest. I'm going to do a lot of lace clown stuff this year. I've got a male going through some animals. I'm excited for it. I fell behind him the DG Clown stuff, but like you said, it's such an amazing adult in a white lace, and it's not like you see many actual white lace clowns out there. Everything is just lace clowns.
Yeah, for real.
So we don't even know what that market's going to do yet because it's so undeveloped.
It sounds like it's going to do very well because it's another beautiful morph that, you know, improves with age and everything and looks really, really good. I have seen a few of them. I like their bellies too. They kind of look like you ever see the yellow bellies that have kind of like that black kind of chain pattern? It's like
pixelation.
Yeah, the pixelation, it's like even more. It's way higher, and the brightness is really cool. So that's cool that you have them, Dave. I didn't know that. Because I like ball pythons
Dave,
a lot.
Plug me with some whatever lace shit you got going on that's available. You want to get rid of? Please help me up, Dave. Because Dave,
I'll let you know, man. I'm locking. I'm all locking right now.
I got one of my most powerful ball python females from Dave, and I'm actually going to send the skin test shed for the hypo to make sure it's hypo. But cannot wait to get that girl breeding. Tell you that much. The spot nose, triple hets.
Yeah, I know what you're talking.
G clown, pos hypo. Anyways.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking. You know what? So I remember back in the day, and I never actually, someone else might know it, but hypo ball pythons back in the day, I was told that their sheds were clear. There was no pattern on the sheds. I never actually confirmed that. Do you know anything about that, Junior?
No, I have. I remember hearing about that, but certain morphs, you can definitely see their shed, like certain morphs. Like if I have a super anaconda hognose shed out, it doesn't have pattern. There's still some remnants of like pigmentation in that old skin. So yeah, I'm sure with the ghost being more, there might be some, but it might be very faint. I'm sure it's different.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that. I got plenty of ghosts here. It's something I remember hearing about like years ago, like decades ago, and I never actually I should have cared enough, but that was always one thing that people used back in the day. I think Chromatophores used to talk about that a lot.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, so hopefully when he comes back, I know he wants to cut this off in like 10 minutes, give or take. I kind of want to talk green tree pythons with him because I don't know shit about green tree pythons.
Yeah, I don't really know much about them either. I know there's like the localities. I know Biax, like one of the more common ones. I think the Jampias, those might be the ones that end up having that more blue phase look, especially as adults. They go through that ontogenic color change naturally, where they go from yellow or red to the green or green and yellow, and then some are even end up being blue.
So his comment that he made before. So you hear me, right, bud? You're
Me?
back. Yeah, so we're
Yeah.
going green tree pythons now, man. I want to talk green tree pythons for a little bit. Is that okay? Got like 10, 15 minutes and you agreeing?
Let's do it. Yeah, I can't say no to that.
Okay, so here's the thing. So you said there's no mutations in green tree pythons, arguably, but that's based on codon recessive. You guys have calico projects. I believe, what was it? Now, this might be probably more locality-based, but the lemon tree project, I believe, where there was like 11 in the country or 6 in the country. But, if we talk about calico, just because it's not cut and dry on genetics, is it reproducible?
Are you seeing any reproducible like qualities with that, MJ? Are you seeing many people produce these like calicoed ones, and are they experiencing more, or are these calico ones happening at a certain stage and point in their like adult life when they turn like that?
So from what I know with this calico stuff, it's not being produced, a lot. I can't even tell you the last time I saw somebody in the country who had a calico clutch, and I could just be brain farting right now. And the lemon tree stuff, right? Like these are all names that just are all like historical now. You don't see these anymore. Either somebody who was working with it just had really shitty success with the babies, or the females would die, but I don't know. There was always these horror stories behind the lemon tree and stuff like this. And then you have, Marshall Mendez, who has Versace, who's het albino. And then there's this albino thing going on, which he hatched an albino out that died right after it came out the egg. Go fucking figure. But due to the eye, the pupil, he was able to tell it was an albino. And so I don't know, man. Like, that's why I'm like.
Well, you know what? You just said it, man. So there aren't no morphs. Don't you remember Floyd back in the day? That big albino they had breeding pictures of? You don't know what I'm talking about, do you?
I remember seeing an albino green tree for a while. That's what I was about to ask. I guess nobody's really gotten that going, though, as far as like established.
Just for fun, while we're doing this, MJ, Google albino green tree python, and its name was Floyd.
The adult looked really impressive, wasn't it? Like
it was like orange. It was like an orange adult, and there's a breeding picture of it.
Oh, I found it. Holy shit!
Yeah.
All right, hold on. It's coming. This is really exciting.
I know, right? I always thought that was the only one, but
oh yeah, this is
since then I was told there's others. But yeah, they showed pictures of that thing breeding. I don't know what happened, man. That was like fucking 15, 20 years ago. I feel like that picture was out there.
Yeah, it's been out for a long time, man. I think you're right, Dave. It's right around 15 years. I remember seeing it.
No, I'll stock some more pictures for you later too, but man, that animal, like, that was such a cool. And so I guess that would arguably be the only mutation. But then also, what if some of these blue projects is like an exanthic or anuretristic project?
Yeah.
Urothistic or not? That wouldn't fall in that, because with rough greens, they found a blue rough green and they thought that was an exanthic project, or would it be anuretristic with that?
Well, the pigment cells that are responsible for yellow and red pigmentation are the same exact pigment cells. Some species though are just more prone to producing the proteins and whatever how that works with like producing the yellow pigmentation, and other ones are more just naturally produce red pigmentation. So if you have a corn snake which is primarily red and you get let's say an exanthic, you actually call it anuretristic, since that animal's primarily red. A ball python's primarily gold yellow, so they call it axanthic. Sometimes they can be used interchangeably. Sometimes I've heard of people denoting them for different, actual strains of, let's say, axanthic or anerythristic, ones that are not on the same loci, they're not in the same location, so they're non-allelic. And they might call one anery, they might call one axanthic. It's kind of like, there's a lot of jargon in the hobby. And, so there's some adaptation of how these names happen. And then there's some scientific terminology behind it too. But yeah, when it comes to red-yellow pigmentation, erythrophores and xanthophores, they're produced by the same chromatophores, same pigment cells.
Okay. Yeah, because that was always one thing I always found weird was like boas, it's anerythristic. Ball pythons, there's 6 or 7 lines of axanthic. None of them compatible together. You get in the corn snakes, you get back into anerythristic. You jump in other species, you get back into axanthic. I always thought it was pulling it out of your ass, I guess you could say, because even in ball pythons, one of those axanthics could be an anerythristic, and that's why they're not compatible.
Well, that's just a name. I mean, they're both essentially it's a gene that's doing the same thing. It's just on a different location.
Red taking more red, and the other one takes more yellow out of it.
Well, yeah. I mean, let's say you had like well, the thing is again, it's the same pigment cells, so you could really, label it any name you really want to. But let's say you're getting anerythristic that shows a little bit of yellow through, but it's probably like anery corn. Sometimes you still get some yellow through, and that's just the pigment that's just coming through to a degree. All these axanthic and anerythristic animals aren't 100%. The A is supposed to stand for without. But if you look at a snow boa, a snow hognose, snowball python, there is still some level of like xanthophores and sometimes even erythrophores, especially on hognose coming through. Because I have snow hognose that have quite a bit of pink in them. And I actually selectively line breed my snows. I have purple extreme red snows. I'm on the 4th generation. Actually, after this season, I'll be on the 5th generation of them. And these things are crazy pink and white because I found a bit of erythrophores that are still shining through a bit. Yep. Putting reds and stuff into them and, producing these snows that, produce more pink pigment. Although that's like, you can do that with you can do it with any axanthic. All the axanthics don't completely eliminate it as far as axanthics and anerythristics that I've seen in the reptile hobby. I'm sure there are some that are close to complete, but.
So you don't have any green tree pythons in your collection now, Junior?
I don't have any green trees. I know a little bit about them. They're, a cool species. They're of interest to me. They're not something I, read up about too much, but I can appreciate them very much so as a species.
Would you ever maybe get into them if that, if the right moment were to arise?
Probably not, just because I'm so focused on hognose and green trees are like, I'd feel like maybe they'd be more of like a display piece, and it's like always like a bonsai tree. You have to go in there and check it like fucking daily, misting them. That's why you're like, I already knew what you're going. You're like, I feel like I'm on these things every day, and that's like what you have to be.
Yeah,
but,
every day.
Definitely a species like, for them, like I think because I've heard of people saying like, hey, they have problems with keeping them alive, and I'm like, you know what, these things are up in canopies. The one thing that I would look at right away is really good ventilation. You look like you have really big setup back there, and you got cross ventilation. So I would be all about circulation, ventilation, keeping the appropriate temperatures, and then bonsai treeing it with spray bottles and making sure it has fresh water all the time. And that's the thing. I'm like, after a while, I was like, I definitely have to have somebody like my friend Leslie that helps me. She'd also have to get involved with the bonsai green tree pythons and maintaining them. But
Dave,
yeah. Well, there's one thing I watched too. It wasn't great, but it's emerald tree boas. Dave Kaufman had an episode he did with this guy that had been keeping them for a really long time, and that guy was very unique because he was like he had been keeping them for a very long time, and he was like giving out like all kinds of secrets and things that he's learned over like the 25, 30 plus years he had them.
What? How long ago was this video?
Not that long ago. It was really good. Whoever that guy is, I could tell just by listening to him and everything. I was like, this guy knows what's up. He may have even been doing it for like 40 years. Yeah, Emerald Basins.
What's his name?
Can't remember his name.
Emerald Basin, like, okay.
It's Dave Kaufman. Just look at the Emerald Tree Boa episode, and he had Emerald Basin. He has the ones with the big, thick white stripes. He's like, they're like, those things are worth like $25,000. And that guy's, pretty much figured it out. And it sounds like he does like really slow, methodical process. Simplify things, doesn't overfeed them. That's one thing with the hognose I do. I do portion control. Now, hognose are really easy because these things come from the, central plains and, prairie potholes in the United States. And they're a very hardy species when it comes to temperatures. But hognose are just so different. But I just everything, actually, even the way the hognose live in the wild, their whole physiology, everything, and the way they respond to their ecosystem is very, very interesting to me. They're by far my favorite species. But
that's Tom. His name's Tom. I've had dinner with this guy, bro.
You had dinner with that guy, huh?
Yeah.
That guy was awesome. Actually, I'm going to rewatch that one just because that was such a good episode.
He's an OG, bro. Like I was, it was great until we went back to the bar at Tinley, and then unfortunately his hearing's really bad. So all the questions I started asking, he just couldn't hear me after a while. But the guy was a wealth of knowledge behind the Northerns. He worked primarily with Northerns. He had basics too, but he had fucking some crazy Northerns. Crazy. I knew. And that Dave Kaufman video was 4 years ago, buddy. It wasn't recent.
Okay.
Well, Dave Kaufman never ages. You can't tell the difference in his videos.
Yeah. I thought it was like a 2-year-old video, but that makes sense because I probably watched it like a year ago, and I probably is like a little it's a little longer than I thought. Dave,
let's get the wrap up question. I got to get going here. So why don't we get a last question for Junior here? And I got hot seat questions for him.
Nothing crazy, man, but kind of bringing up the green trees. Is there ever any room to just have pets anymore, or are you always just going to buy pairs if you ever get into a species like you did with the beadeds?
I'm probably always going to have to buy just some pairs just because it'd be fun just to, at least breed a pair of them and just see the whole process and have the offspring. Is there a chance for that? Yeah, I think so. I have a stray cat that's from outside. So, although she had babies, but I didn't actually put the male cat with her. Okay. So you got kittens over there right now, bud? No, that's when I first got her from outside. And she was it turned out she was all skinny and small. And then I started feeding her up because, she was outside for who knows, a week or two. And she was a small cat. And then after maybe 3-4 weeks of taking care of her, I noticed her belly was getting pretty round. And I was it's just not bloated. And I was feeling it. I was that feels pretty tight. I was I think she's gravid. And then she was.
For you, man. Right? Way to be able to spot that with no experience.
Well, she was very, very melony and really roundish in the belly.
Junior, hey, these 2 hours went by way too fast. Definitely going to be one of many episodes to come. I'm going to bring you back on for sure. I appreciate this.
Yeah, I appreciate it too, man.
You influenced me to talk more about hognoses. That's for damn sure. But I'm not going to lie. I'm going to want to have you on every time that's the case. But before I let you go, hot tea questions, and then we'll call it a night. Are you cool with that?
Yes.
All right, hey guys, the likes are very respectable, but if you have not yet, please get the likes up for Junior. This was one hell of a show. But hot tea questions coming in hot. Here we go. You ready, Junior?
Yes.
All right, frozen thought or live?
Yeah, I do frozen thought, but if I could do all live pre-killed, I would do that.
No disrespect. With all due respect, answer with no explanation. I really appreciate it.
Okay. All right.
Damn.
A cut or no cut?
A cut or no cut?
Yeah. Would you ever cut an egg, or would you never cut an egg?
Cut. But I tear. I broke the rule again.
on what day for a hognose?
When all the others have pipped, sometimes basically if they're oversaturated with water and they swell up, I tell people to tear them. Is it necessary? No. But if you just pinch the egg and you pull it apart, you're not messing with that vascular system that exchanges oxygen to the embryo and whatnot. So if you want to, it's okay.
So you tear, you don't cut.
I do tear sometimes, yeah.
Wow. Okay. Red chondro neo or yellow chondro neo?
Probably red chondro.
Locality chondro or designer chondro?
Oh man, probably the designers. I'd have to see them more, but I'm thinking I might just go locale. I mean, the Jampias are the ones that are turn blue sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pre-first shed meal or post-first shed meal?
Post shed.
Yay imports or boo imports, if it was up to you?
Boo imports on the large scale.
Wow. What about one reptile you would import to your collection anywhere around the world, whatever it is, what would it be?
Western hognose.
You're going to say that. What about one reptile that you can think of that nobody should touch? Just leave it alone where it's at. God bless it.
Dragon scale snakes.
Respect.
Sad.
Like, how about this? To spray or mist a hognose, or to never spray or mist a hognose?
Spray the shit out of them. You can do that if you need to.
Big flexor or no flexor?
Like showing projects?
Yeah, like showing, exactly. Flexing off your projects.
Probably no flex.
Come on, guy. I don't know, buddy. What about your memes? Big flex on the memes?
If you can, yes. Big flex on memes. Yeah.
How about this? Smash or pass on Morph Market?
Oh, smash.
Perfect. How about this? Steak or fish?
Steak.
Yay alcohol or boo alcohol?
Nah, sorry, boo alcohol. It's kind of it's fine, but go ahead.
Favorite ball python morph?
Ooh. I like super black. Let's say GHI Mojave Clown super blackhead, if that exists yet.
I just asked for one. He gave you like 20. How about this? Least favorite ball python morph?
Probably spider.
Respect. Little word association. First thing to come to mind. Milk.
Cow.
Coco.
What'd you say?
Coco.
Cocoa. Water.
Dave Levison.
Friend.
Aw.
FedEx Shipping.
Yes.
#1 shipping company in the world for reptiles.
Ship your reptiles.
You heard the guy.
They are.
Instagram trolls.
No, too many of them.
How about this? If you had to eliminate one hognose morph in the whole hognose game, what would it be?
Oh man, people are gonna hate me for that one.
Yes.
My opinion, I think it's gonna change in a couple of years. Right now, it's probably pastel pink.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's a popular one. There is a reason for it.
Pastel pink people are they're punching the air right now.
I have some. I don't think it's not that bad. Maybe hypo is either. It might be hypo or pastel pink is a tough one.
Damn. Well, you know what? You nailed these hot seat questions, buddy. Just like you nailed this podcast. We had just shy of 70 people tapped in tonight. What do you have to say to all your supporters out there, man? Everyone who you inspired in the hognose game and many other reptile industries, man. What do you have to say to everyone?
Oh, I appreciate them. I mean, again, without other people, this wouldn't be anything. So without people having an interest in other species as well as interest in the species that I'm interested in, you definitely need a community of like-minded people or people with just, a generalized shared interest. So I appreciate anybody that's interested in hognose, whether they have one just as a pet or if they're a breeder. Thanks for just, being interested in reptiles just like me. I mean, I guess I don't have to thank somebody for their interest. And also, I got a new YouTube channel that I'm starting. It's just going to be James G. Reptile. Can I plug that, MJ?
Yeah. Is it already up? Do you already have it?
I put up one episode today.
So it's called JMG Reptiles on YouTube?
Yeah, just James G. Reptile. And then, it's the first video is on how to remove a hognose if it mistakes you for food, because that's one people like new owners always fuck up. A hognose chews them. Scroll down.
Oh, here he is. We got to work on that, buddy. We got to get you up there.
It's just posted.
It's all right. Hold on. Here he is, guys. All right, listen. JMG Reptiles. Everyone go subscribe right there. And I was going to also say, if someone wants to reach out to you for whatever, man, you're a very awesome guy to chat with. But if best way to get a hold of you would be Instagram, you would say?
Instagram and Morph Market.
Morph Market. Okay.
Love Morph Market. Don't know why people are bitching on Facebook. Well, actually, I know why. It's called argument book. People just look there to bitch about stuff. Nobody actually really wants to complain. They just feel like they have to.
And listen, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't have the statistics on this yet, but the ones bitching, complaining the most are doing the less in this industry. It's the ones who really don't have a lot going on, from what I can tell.
I don't know. Although if you have time to complain on the internet, I mean, it depends on the level of complaining. I don't know.
Add a project, maybe. Add a hognose project or something. You're not busy enough. I don't think.
There you go. Exactly. Add a chondro.
Junior, have a good night, buddy. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time, okay?
Yeah, thanks, MJ. Thanks, Dave. I'll see you both.
Talk to you after, bud.
Give it up for JMG Reptiles, ladies and gentlemen. Later, buddy.
Later.
Oh, man, what a great episode. Thank you, Dave, for doing as you do the most. I hope you get home safe. Overall thoughts on tonight's episode? I thought it went great. I know it was quick, but went by great.
You get him going, man. He doesn't shut the fuck up.
Yeah. Dave, real quick, before I forget, best way, I'm not going to lie, man. Instagram's popping nowadays. You're on Instagram. We don't really get to talk about that much. Can I take the opportunity to shout out your Instagram page and anything you want to say about it real quick?
I neglect it more than anything else in my life, but I've got to get better at it. I promise I'm going to start trying. My effort is minimal, guys, and I am so sorry. But I'm going to start going back to 3 posts on a day, and I'm going to try to stay on top of it. If not, MJ's going to give me shit about it. Hopefully he's going to get me in line on this social media thing. I really hate it.
Yeah. I have an idea, but we'll talk off camera on it. But either way, Dave, thank you so much. I appreciate you always coming through as always, and have a good night, man.
Appreciate you too, man. Looking forward to the next one.
Get home safe, please. I beg you, please get home safe.
Oh, yeah.
All right, bye. Dave Levinson, ladies and gentlemen. And again, tonight's episode was brought to you by the Reptile Super Show, #1 reptile show in the country. Thank you, Rami. Thank you, the entire Reptile Super Show team. If this was your first time tapping in on tonight's episode, do your boy a favor, hit that subscribe button. I really appreciate anyone who hits the subscribe button. Hit that notification bell. If you thought tonight's episode was great, hit that like button. If you're in the live chats, drop a super chat if you thought that tonight's episode deserved one. Much love and respect. I got to say, Sunday, it's going down because you guys know how much I geek out over the tree monitors. And this Sunday, we're going to be talking yet again about tree monitors. My boy, Cody, okay, very relevant in the tree monitor game. He has bred multiple species of tree monitors, and I cannot wait to geek out over it, okay? We're going to be talking with Cody this Sunday, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, okay? Be ready for that. Then I have a special new breeder on the block series happening Monday. I'm not even going to tell you who that is, but I'm going to give you a quick glimpse on who I'm bringing next Thursday night. Because, guys, you know, every now and again, I want to have the best and the best come and sit down on the Trap Talk Roundtable so we can just chop it up. Elite ball python talk. I try to bring the sickest, freshest up-and-comer, about 6 years and less breeder in the game. And then I try to bring the more established, like veteran, 15, 20 plus year veteran in the game. So we can have two different dynamics. Well, guess what? I thought I brought such a pair together for this next Thursday night. And I want you guys to definitely be ready for it. Okay. This is why you should subscribe to this channel. Coolest reptile podcast in the world. Are you ready? Episode 345. We have Antoine Hood and Bob's Balls. One episode together. This is all going to be nuts. Next Thursday night, 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. Thank you so much. Again, join the Patreon. If you want to support what I do, if you want to tap in with over 165 trappers, go down to the very first link in the description below. Join the Trap Talk Patreon family. I'll give you the Discord. And then you can tap in with the whole family, and we could just go nuts on this. It's all about the reptiles, guys. I love you so much. Thank you for all the love and support. Again, go subscribe to my other YouTube channel, The Trap Vlogs. And don't be sleeping on me, man. Instagram, Trap Talk God 619. Have a good night. Great episode. Love yourself. Love each other. I'm out.